Before we jump into the agenda, though, there is a bit of a switch in the agenda topics today, as there is one item that would necessitate recusals from any conservation district or farmers that might be joining us, and that has to do with the round 16 year 2 Agnon point source round 27 split. We do need a motion from the state committee on that today, so we're going to ask that those joining us from districts or farmers joining us, with the exception of your district representative from CEA, that you recuse yourself by hanging up the line as we have that discussion motion, and then we will be adjourning right after that. So you won't miss anything else on the agenda today. Okay, Dale, I think we're all set with housekeeping here. 15 minutes past the hour. I guess that wasn't too bad, but we'll get better at this next time around. But Dale, go ahead with review and approval of minutes.
Yeah. All right. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from last month?
There was one correction, Dale. I'm sorry, there was one correction to the participant list. It was really hard to get everybody listed, so somebody to reach out to me to mention that they were indeed at the meeting, so I made that change. That was Sam Casella, president of NYACD and Ontario County Soil and Water District.
All right, good. Okay. If no other changes or additions or corrections, motion to approve, please.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, aye? Motion approved. Correspondence, Brian?
Okay, thank you. Again, I'll just ask that everybody mute their lines, please. Thank you. So we actually do have correspondence that I'm going to share with the committee today. This came in from Orange County Soil and Water District, from Kevin Sumner, District Manager. And he wanted the committee to be aware of an issue with the Soil and Water Board. And this has to do with an Orange County District Farm Bureau seat, which is held by their chairman. And this was up for renewal at the end of 2019. According to the district, the chairman has served with distinction since 2003, was the chair as a voting member starting in 2003 and the chair in 2013. He's a really good, well-functioning board member. And they had assumed that this board member would be appointed until he chose to retire. The Orange County Farm Bureau decided that they would request to the county that a new member be appointed to the district board, stating that it was time for a change. When the county reached out to Farm Bureau in January 2020, Farm Bureau submitted a name to the county, but apparently without notifying the district or the person in that seat, the chair of the Soil and Water District, of their intentions or concerns. The district later learned that most of the Orange County Farm Bureau board was not notified of this recommendation, nor invited to discuss it or vote on it. So apparently there were no records of the vote to approve the list of potential district board nominees. Instead, there was an email poll done, apparently with select members of the Farm Bureau board. The district is troubled by this. The manager does state, on behalf of the board, that if Orange County Farm Bureau did wish to go in a different direction and follow the proper procedures, the district would understand and accept that outcome. They were bringing this matter to our attention, requesting that we enter this into the public record and that we, brief our committee members, including our Farm Bureau members, the state committee, on the situation. Should the New York Farm Bureau wish to inquire about any of the procedures that took place in the county with this nominee. That is a summary of the correspondence, not the entire correspondence, but I wanted to enter that into the public record. Any questions, the voting members or anybody else? You can unmute your lines. And
yeah, yesterday I spoke with both Chris Calder, who is the district board member for that area, and Liz Drybush, our CEO, and just kind of made them aware of the situation. Like I talked with you yesterday, Brian, none of this is a surprise to me, and it wasn't a surprise to them either. And we're going to discuss it tonight. We've got a state board meeting tonight and tomorrow night, so we're going to discuss it a little bit in that meeting. Not too sure what we can do if, other than the fact that the vote may have not been, 100% legal. So Liz was going to look into it a little bit, talk with the field advisor in that area, and see what information she could get, and just then kind of go from there. So.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate that very much. And, as we also discussed, and I told the district when the email came through that, the committee doesn't regularly intervene in district, board or personnel issues, but that we would make the committee aware of this and, continue to work with the board, as they move forward to advance their district capacity projects and programs, and monitor the situation moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll kind of follow up with you, Brian, on kind of how our discussion goes today. And I don't know if we'll discuss it tonight or tomorrow night, but I'll let you know kind of how that discussion goes.
Thank you, Darren. Appreciate that.
Any other correspondence?
Okay.
Brian?
No, that is all the correspondence that I have at this time.
Okay.
So I can move to a staff update. Since our last meeting, I'd like to report that AJ Battaglia has left the division in the state committee staff. He left the staff in May for another job within the Department of Ag and Markets. He is working with the Division of Ag Development and will be working on promotional programs and Grown and Certified. So I want to thank AJ for all he's done to help us through the last couple of years, and wish him well in his new endeavors. Also, staff update due to COVID-19. Just want to let everybody know that state committee staff are still working from their home offices. We'll be doing so for most likely a majority of the summer. And, I am pleased with how everything has been functioning thus far, and all the staff working from home, and being very productive, and moving forward with programs, projects, and tasks. We do have staff in the Albany office on a part-time basis right now. The Albany office did open their doors just this Monday, but with a very conservative phased opening approach, where most of the employees within 10B are still working from home or accessing the office on a part-time basis. Finally, staff update due to COVID. I think everybody's aware of the budget challenges. The hiring freeze is in effect. That's a hard hiring freeze. So going back to the fact that AJ's moved to another division, likely will not be able to replace that position anytime soon. But we'll be able to move forward with the staff that we have, and I will continue to update in the committee as we move forward on that. I know it's not on the agenda, but I do want to mention we are working with our fiscal management office, who's working with the Division of Budget for New York State to make sure we demonstrate what our ongoing commitments are, the claims for payments that we have on hand, and working with them to develop a plan moving forward, whether EPF programming and other state resources. Again, I will keep the committee updated as those discussions continue, and hopefully I will have more information to give the next time we meet. Dale, that is all I have for correspondence, staff, and budget update.
Sorry, I had it muted. We'll move on to
That's
the,
okay.
we'll move on to the TAC meeting update. See who wants to start first.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to pass the presentation over
Since we're going to leave Greg's to
Jennifer.
last, start with Jennifer.
Yep, bear with me, and Jennifer, I'm gonna pass you the controls here.
Okay.
You should be all yours.
So I'm just sharing a copy of a soil health policy that we've been working on for a little while. This was something we brought before the TAC this past meeting for some discussion. This is pending any RFPs moving forward. So this would be something we would look to approve as the next round of RFPs for Ag Non-Point Source and CRF go out. So this is still in a draft form at this point. Just a couple things that I'll point out is that we're using some soil health definitions that we would also use for the CRF program. Any sort of documents put together for the program just to build some consistency throughout our programs. And this is all just to back up, I guess this soil health policy is based on creating a per unit rate for certain practices to make it easier for administration of these practices. And it would be built on using NRCS rates, kind of using a 3-year average, and then adding some on top of the rate to allow for us to provide the kind of incentives that we want to for encouraging these practices. So one thing that the TAC had asked about is considering regional rates. Right now it's built as one state rate. So that was something that they brought up for consideration. And then the other thing was that they liked the consistency of having it for 3 years. Consistency for planning from the planner perspective, from the landowner perspective, from the district's perspective, yet still looking at those rates, allowing us to change them as necessary. So right now this is just for informational purposes, and this will be something that we want to get approved before the next round of RFPs. So if there's any questions or comments, I'd appreciate the feedback.
Thanks, Jennifer. We had a really good discussion at the TAC meeting, and even during that meeting, we looked at other state programs as well and how they incentivize the adoption of cover crops, for example, such as the state of Maryland. And I think, as Jennifer mentioned, we're starting off with the NRCS rates, an average of the last 3 years, and adding incentives on top of that. So we're still tweaking what we think would be a good New York State rate to move forward under the Healthy Soils NY program. And hopefully after the next TAC meeting, we'll have a recommendation for the committee to review and motion on. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
All right. If that's all for Jennifer, on to Tim Clark.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
Tim, I'm going to pass.
I do have a question for Jennifer, if it's possible to go back there.
Sure, go ahead.
Jennifer, can you clarify whether or not and under what circumstances a district could apply for cover crops in consecutive rounds?
So, yeah, that's something we need to clarify in this policy. Right now, we have it as that there wouldn't be any sort of waiting period, that once you finish a contract, you could go and reapply for funding for soil health practices. And we do have some language currently in the policy about having to show that it's, important to your AIM strategy, or there's, another reason that you're attempting those cover crops. But we've removed the 3-year waiting period that was a part of the last iteration of this policy.
And I'll just add on to that, the one stipulation in there is that districts can't apply like through, say, round 26 and get funded and then apply through the next round of like CRF for the same landowner. So once they get a contract through one program, they have to complete that contract before they can apply to another program to do more cover crop.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, are we moving on to me?
Yeah, ready, Tim.
Okay, can you see my slides?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is an update on a topic we covered at the TAC meeting and at a state committee meeting a few months ago. Basically, we're discussing the engineering versus conservation practices lists. And this is a list that describes which NRCS standards districts need to have professional engineers sign off on. And in the past, we've always used this job approval authority chart that NRCS produces to define that list. In 2017, Paula Bagley, the NRCS State Conservation Engineer, reclassified some of the practices to be engineering instead of conservation. And the whole point of this discussion is whether we want to follow their lead and also adopt those restrictions ourselves, or whether we want to strike on our own. Basically, all the stream crossings were moved to engineering. So that's fords, culverts, and bridges. Then trails and walkways that require culverts or stream crossings, okay, those would be engineering too. Livestock pipelines are all moved to engineering. And then there's a few others that were moved that are not really used by districts, such as building envelope improvement and a couple energy ones. We don't have to follow NRCS's change in this instance. Both NRCS and the state committee have received guidance from the State Board for Engineering and Land Surveying. And so we can go back to that board and get new guidance or clarification on guidance. But in the past, we've always followed NRCS's changes to JAA as far as E versus C designations. So the designations that Paula came up with are based on guidance from the State Board of Engineering and Land Surveying and on her sound judgment. Like, she did make these changes with good reason, and there's good justification to back them up. It wasn't just some out of the blue change. But again, we don't have to follow NRCS policy. So I'm looking at two options to present to the committee. I have this first option. This is a little bit different from the presentation I had before, which was 4 options. We've kind of narrowed it down to 2. The first would be to adopt the current NRCS E versus C list as described in their JAA chart. That would adopt everything that NRCS has done and would match our systems up identically. It would eliminate stream crossings and most trails and walkways. It would maintain this technical relationship we've had with NRCS and would eliminate confusion from having separate systems. I think it would be the most restrictive option for what districts can design and certify. And therefore, having more professional engineers sign off on projects would be the most conservative option for safeguarding public safety. Our other option is to strike out on our own. Before I had presented kind of two options where we engage with the state board or we do something else. I've kind of canceled that idea out. I think if we deviate from NRCS's new policy, that we definitely want to engage with the state board and get some buy-in from them on any carve-outs or decisions that we're going to make as an agency. We simply don't have the authority to come up with a new policy all by ourselves. The way I see this working out would be to get clarification on the guidance that they provided before, and also to get specific carve-outs for projects of certain sizes. In the guidance they gave us before, it was more of a general, like, if it's protecting a structure, then it's engineering. If it's in the field, it's conservation. So I'd want to get some more specifics ironed out with them. For example, we could do culverts of a certain size, culverts that aren't on access roads, stream crossings of a certain order, or we could do forwards only, something like that. Okay. The benefits of going out on our own would be we'd maintain flexibility for districts to design their own work. We'd create a second technical backstop for the committee. That would be like creating a, just strengthening our relationship with the State Board of Engineering that would enter them more into our process as a technical backstop. It could be confusing having separate systems. There's a chance that we could lose more than we gain. Okay, the board may request to review all of our standards and they could designate them all engineering and we lose whatever little bits we still have. And also it could be a long drawn out process. The state board meets once a year and they've already met in 2020. So it'd be at least a year out before we got any decisions or things worked out for them. So I guess I'm looking for state committee, partner, and district input on which option they'd like to pursue. I guess, in my opinion, I would like to go out on our own and engage the state board, see what they have to say, and if we can get more project categories for districts to design. That's my preference, is having districts design more work and professional engineers do less. But I'm really looking for input from the committee and some guidance on which of these to pursue.
Thanks, Tim. So really what we are, just as Tim mentioned, looking for is some direction from the committee at this point to engage in option 2, which will be considerable, given that, engaging with the state board, developing a protocol, a policy and a protocol for this will be time consuming. If the committee, through advisement from partners, decide that we should pursue option 1, then we will not spend all that time looking at option 2. So, really that's what we're looking for today, some direction from the committee moving forward and whether we should begin to, pursue that option to go out on our own and deviate from the NRCS procedures here. Thanks, Tim. It was a really good presentation. Laid it out very nicely.
You're welcome.
Brian, have you reached out to districts prior to this at all?
Yeah,
I could let Tim answer that. Yep.
Yep. Chastity Miller volunteered to survey districts for opinions on the topic, but as far as I know, she had not heard any responses.
Well, it was also very difficult during this period because of COVID. So we had so many other things going on. If I would be willing to throw it out there again and just ask for more opinions, if you guys would like to give us a little bit more time on this.
I think that'd be great. This is Brian again. And also, Tim, remember that we did have a pretty thorough discussion with district managers at the symposium, which feels like it was ages ago now, where you and Paula presented on related topics and discussed this particular point. So yes, Dale, we have had this discussion with the district leadership, and just as Chaz said, over the last few months, obviously, priorities have been elsewhere, and so we don't have anything documented by way of a survey per se, but there has been good discussion so far, and a few folks have commented.
I guess what I'm wondering, do the districts want it, the change? What have you heard? I don't necessarily think the voting members, we should be imposing on them, I guess you could call it that, if they really don't think it's necessary. Do they really want this? What do you know?
There's a lot of districts that have either an engineer on staff or access to low-cost engineering. And so many of the most, most productive districts that do the most of these field hydraulic practices, stream crossings, culverts, a lot of them get their designs certified by an engineer anyways, as a way to limit liability. But certainly there are a few districts that still do all their own designs in-house, and would prefer to have the authority to keep doing that.
I think that this is Chaz from CDEA. I think that it's kind of, for lack of better terms, almost split. And when we spoke about it at the TACTA, I think there was a couple more options we were talking about. So what I'll do is, I've ran it by a few people, and what I'll do is I will officially send out a survey. So I just sent an email to Tim, and we'll send out a survey and have an answer for everybody at the next state committee meeting.
Okay, thanks, Chaz. That's a great idea.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I would definitely, if the districts really feel that they, a number of them want this, I'd support it. The other voting members, how do you feel?
Yeah, just option two, it's a lot of work. I just want to make sure that, that it's and that the districts want it. I'm kind of in the same position. I want to make sure that they're going to want it if it's going to be that much more work.
Yeah, I agree.
It is going to be a lot more work, and I feel the same way. I think if they want it, fine, but if they don't, they know more about it, what their work or what their workload is than we do.
You do. We can't wait till next month, Brian.
We can. We'll continue the discussion at the TAC level too. I believe we'll schedule a TAC meeting sometime in July, and we can have another discussion there as well. And by then we'll also have the survey results from districts. Because again, yes, just as we're discussing right now, is it worth the effort to go through the state board? And Chaz, again, we just decided that, all the options are still there that they were at the TAC meeting, but we combined essentially option 3 and 4, meaning that we just couldn't strike it out on our own without accessing the state ed board and having that discussion with them. And as Tim points out, when we open up that list, we could potentially have them review other practices that could change in designation as well. So, that's the risk we run. Plus, if districts, do have the capacity to continue under the current NRCS structure, and it wouldn't be that overly burdensome to them. We also might not want to set out a precedent here, you know, with these practices now, but it could be other practices down the road. So certainly not a black and white issue, and one that deserves a lot of discussion and feedback from our partners and districts.
Well, yeah, and I apologize for pulling back on you guys on this one, but I think
You didn't, Chaz. No worries.
No, well, but I think that the fact that we pulled out the option of just doing our own thing does change the environment, say. So let's get it in writing, and then nobody can, you know, it'll just be cleaner.
Yeah, as long as we have time, there's no use rushing into it till we get more information back.
Mm-hmm.
Other things, Tim?
That's it. That's good. That's good for me.
All right, good. Bethany, round 27.
Okay. I'm just going to share. I don't have anything specific to share with the group. Oops, this is the wrong one. Here we go. So I'll just put the agenda back up. But at the TAC meeting that we had back in April, we started talking about the development of round 27 of the Ag Non-Point Source program. And specifically, we talked about revising a couple of the current policies that are currently in place through the program. The first that we talked about actually developing or adopting a new requirement to require that synthetic liners be installed with any earthen waste storage that is funded through the Ag Non-Point Source program. This would make, or this would be consistent with the policy or the program decision that we made when we established the CAFO waste storage and transfer system program. Through that program, we decided to make we decided to go with the liner requirement basically to add further water quality protection to manure storage projects and to help reduce, you know, the level of scrutiny put in place on CAFO farms. Notably, when we made this decision, we took a step away from the NRCS standard and added that extra requirement, but we felt it was necessary specifically through the CAFO program, just given the high level of scrutiny that's out there with those particular farms. But in working through starting to develop round 27, we got discussing that the need to be consistent across, you know, all of our programs, even though the CAFO program is it's wrapping up. We made the decision for that added water quality benefit through that program. And maybe it would be an appropriate time to now take the step to add that additional water quality protection through the Ag Non-Point Source program. One of the biggest concerns that we experienced or we heard about with the decision that we made for the CAFO program was just the added cost of putting that liner in place, and specifically because through that program we actually had a cap on funding, so it made things a little bit tighter in the budget. I don't believe that would be a concern through our Ag Non-Point Source program, because at this point we don't have any caps on the funding. So the purpose of bringing that up at the TAC was just to kind of get the initial reaction of the group, you know, what the opinions of the group, you know, if we felt like the policy was worth pursuing, and if there are any other major concerns. So we had a pretty good discussion at that meeting just about the topic in general, and some additional concerns that were brought up was that perhaps the number of suppliers is very limited, and it can be difficult for some regions of the state to have access to those suppliers. We also discussed perhaps some potential challenges with matching state and federal funds, and we tried to work out some ways that we could, work together, specifically the Ag Non-Point Source program and EQIP program. I think, overall the discussion was really good, and in general, the group supported the concept, but at that time we discussed the, potential financial impacts it would have on farms if we were to, make this change now and go forward with it in round 27. Given all that's been going on this year so far, and with the dairy economy and just the status of everything right now being so uncertain, I think it was supported throughout the group that maybe we continue to work on developing a policy to require a liner, but hold off on putting it in place to perhaps round 28 and not go forward with it at this time for round 27.
Blake, could you clarify for me, does EQIP now require line?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Paula, are you online to answer that question?
Hi, sorry, this is Paula. No, we do not require a synthetic liner if an earthen liner is a feasible alternative.
Okay. Now, the reason I asked was because we built a satellite storage several years back with EQIP, and did have to put a liner in, but the soil was, it qualified, but not highly qualified, so they wanted a liner in, and it's fine when you're using taxpayer money. And that's you have to err on the side of caution as much as you can, I think. So I tend to support liners. I'm glad we put it in. If the conditions, if you can set limitations where if it's not highly safe ground to put it in, if it doesn't meet good stringent conditions, that you require a liner. I'm not sure how you want to do that, but the liners they do have their place.
That's a good point, Dale. Go ahead, Bethany, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so just to expand on that a little bit, when we did talk with Paula was on the meeting, as well as Val Podolic. We talked about how the two programs can work together. And from what I understand, with the EQIP program, producers are, given alternatives, for their practices. And if they happen to choose a more costly alternative, maybe they do want to take that extra step and put in a synthetic liner. That's where, say, Ag Non-Point Source could come in, and the two programs could actually work together. So I think there's definitely potential there for both programs to work together if we did eventually move forward with this requirement.
This is Beth. Beth Claypool. I have a question, kind of ignorant question here. How long do liners last? And then what would be the funding for a replacement liner?
I'm not positive of the lifespan. 20 years. I think.
Yeah, 30 years is what Pennsylvania is seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very plastic. So it's a minimum 20 years. Future funding, I guess, would have to be addressed in 20 years. And
the Ag Non-Point Source program, supports the, I guess, upgrade of BMPs that are outside of their current lifespan. And I believe for waste storages, our catalog gives I think waste storages, it's either a 10-year or a 15-year lifespan. So I think if the life of a liner is 20 years, then I think we would be okay to support the upgrade of it or the replacement of it at that time.
Yeah, that's right, Bethany. And to kind of build off of Dale, the comment that you had made, and of course this is a general statement and I'd be in trouble for saying it, but you know, we are also seeing more districts and engineers, farmers working together to add that extra step toward, you know, the additional security that a synthetic liner would have. You know, again, we spent a long time last year discussing the geological investigations and you know, all that has to go into that. So it seems like the industry and our partners are moving toward this, but again, obviously not consistently throughout the state. And as Bethany mentioned, and it can't be understated that, you know, given the climate that we're in now and the fact that you know, clay liners or natural liners are a viable option, that we'd like to continue to pursue those options rather than add the extra restriction in the next round of funding.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe need to wait a year or two.
Hi, this is Corey in Montgomery County.
Hi, Corey.
I just wanted to say, you know, I mean, we've got earthen liners all through Montgomery County. When we started working with the CAFO program, the cost restriction made it really nearly impossible to do the clay liner or do the synthetic liner. We moved to a concrete pit, and it did cost about $70,000 more to go concrete over the synthetic liner, but the farmers really didn't. We had some issues with liners being. You need a floor and a concrete floor, so these things were running the cost up $150,000, $180,000 to add a liner. And you know, we have engineers that work with our soils and do all this work, and NRCS allows the clay liners. If NRCS changed, then I'd say, you know, we have to obviously follow their recommendations. But you know, in Montgomery County, we've got clay liners all through the county, and we've had no failures and no issues with our clay liners. No karst topography. I mean, there's definitely a place where you need a synthetic liner, but I think changing the rules and putting a synthetic liner in every storage was probably one of the biggest failures I felt for our farmers here with our table storage, because it ran the cost up so much that it almost made it not worthwhile to even participate in our program. And in fact, 2 of my CAFO farms didn't participate because we required a liner, and I was able to work on their pits, and we had $150,000 to double the size of the one pit, and it was going to cost $180,000 for the liner. Even if the farmer paid 25% of it, it was still another $40,000 above and beyond what he would have spent. So I just think, you know, the synthetic liner has its place and belongs there, but we do have an engineer at each one of these to evaluate that site, review our soil protocols, review the geology reports. You know, so I think we should leave it in the hands of the engineers specifically to make that call on whether that liner belongs there or not. And, you know, why would we raise the cost of a project $150,000 for something that, you know, I don't know that would be necessary.
Yeah, I think you do need, it would have to be on the conditions where it was warranted, where it might be severe area where maybe they can't get the clay right. I'm not sure you're in a position where we should be requiring them on all of them. It has to have conditions to it.
Yeah, see, I look at public money as my taxpayer money, so it needs to be spent efficiently. And in fact, one of the EQIP requirements is that we always choose the lowest cost alternative. So if I require a liner and the clay and the soil test come back that I could use clay, NRCS would require me to use the lowest cost alternative when we do a contract. So, you know, it would definitely disrupt that interaction that we have with NRCS when we apply for practice. I mean, we have this controversy here in Montgomery County every once in a while when we choose a practice and NRCS says, oh, there's a cheaper alternative, you know, so we have to change our plan a little bit to fit into that standard. You know, so I think that's another, but everything has its place, but I think, you know, to just come through the policy and say, you know, we have to have a liner. Two of my capable farms couldn't apply because it pushed the cost up 180. I had a $120,000 total project cost on one of our pits. And I told them, if you come with my program, I'm going to run your cost $180,000 just for the liner. And it's really the clay floor or the concrete floor that causes the biggest problem. That's the most expensive portion of the whole thing.
They required concrete floor under the liner?
If you have sand on top of the liner, if you have sand bedding, 3 of the engineers I worked with would not put a plastic liner in without a concrete floor if you have sand bedding.
Oh, if you have sand bedding. Oh, yeah, well, I could. Yeah. That would be a problem if you have sand bedding.
Also a very good point, Corey, and certainly, you know, I know that you've been engaged in these discussions with the committee in the past and appreciate your perspective very much. And I think I was thinking about you when I said that I would get in trouble by making such a general statement that I did make about 10 minutes ago. But I'm glad you're here on the call, and that's good perspective. Thank you.
Yep.
Further discussion on the liner issue? I might as well move on, Bethany.
Okay, so in addition to talking about a potential requirement for liners on earthen manure storages, we also started a discussion about shifting our current CNMP requirement that is in place with the Ag Non-Point Source program for manure storages. And I'm actually going to pass the presentation off to Ron Bush, who can talk to everybody a little bit more about that topic. So bear with me, Ron. Okay. Hang on.
While we're waiting for that, I'm just going to remind everybody to please again mute your line. We hear some background noise. I'd like to ask you all mute your lines unless you're speaking in the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, Ron, I think you're the presenter, so if you want to go ahead and share, if you have something to share.
Yep.
Okay.
Is my screen showing? Do you see anything?
I do not. Did you go up to share and then hit share content?
Okay, let me see.
And then select the screen or whatever you want to show.
Still nothing?
I do not see anything. There we go. Something's loading. Coming.
Yep.
Okay, let me know if you see a PowerPoint pop up.
I think it's trying.
I think.
Oh, right.
Got it.
Okay, so I'm not going to drag everyone through every document on this discussion, but I'll give you an update on some of the discussions we had during the TAC meeting, as well as discussions with planners throughout the regions and state committee staff members. So we started looking at the language that supports comprehensive nutrient management plans, specifically related to 313 standards or waste storage facilities, and just seeing, you know, all the language that is provided or the policies surrounding lots of our program areas. And what we found was we've been working on different parts of our programs or policies or planning initiatives throughout time, and sometimes things don't get updated at the same time others are being developed. So our goal was to take a look at all of our documents and all of our program requirements and just make sure we're consistent with the language regarding the requirements for CNMPs and waste storage. And here, what I'm sharing is just a list that it's just some of the items that these things cross over to. And one of the things we found was there are some wires that have been crossed, and it hasn't been significant, but what we would like to do is take a deeper dive into these documents and get one consistent policy and carry that through everything. So one of the options we discussed at the TAC meeting was requiring a CNMP for our program, our ag non-plant programs, our planning programs, if you're planning a waste storage facility. That might sound like that's what we've always done, and that is true, but there were some inconsistencies, especially relating to how we kind of carry contracts and develop them through the ag non-plant process, whether that's, you know, funding a contract or closing one out, and requiring a CNMP just to be completed at the front of this process really would take out a lot of redundant activities or, you know, procedural things that would have to be done in the fiscal office or by regional AAs. And these CNMPs are really crucial for everything that is, you know, the planning work, the cost estimates, and the durations and volumes to be stored for waste storages. So it kind of fits in with the whole planning process. So we haven't made any decisions. Basically what we're looking at here with the state committee is we're just updating you on some of the things that we're looking at, and then we will represent a consistent policy regarding this, and then also show where we make changes in any of these documents. They won't be significant. In a lot of cases, it's one or two sentences, and it's not real impactful on any of the planners' work or the producers' lives. At worst case scenario, for non-CAFO farms, it would mean waiting one more program year to finish a CNMP before applying for ag non-plant. That's really the worst case scenario. I'm going to be quiet for a minute and let some of my colleagues add in anything in this specific area if they think we should talk about something more.
Ron, thank you for that. This is Brian. I just, again, want to reiterate as well that since we've had this policy where you can take a progressive planning approach toward the implementation of a CNMP and do not have to have that CNMP complete for that given round of funding, we have seen more and more that farms already have those CNMPs. Maybe they need to be updated through the process, but those CNMPs are in place. We don't think that this is going to have a huge impact on our district's planners, the farm community. We also identified programs and support for the development of those CNMPs that did not exist when we developed a policy a number of years back to make a farm eligible through a 3A type of screening tool rather than a CNMP. So Ron really took on this particular policy issue and really moved the TAC through a really good discussion and gave us a lot to chew on for the next meeting. So thank you for that. So that's just the thing that I'd like to add to it. Anyone else have any questions, comments? Again, and this isn't to completely specific to any one RFP. So this is a discussion that everybody here during this meeting can engage in.
So, like this, we still have a lot of time to think about this. This is something we're going to try to aim to have something kind of more solid for round 27. So we can canvass, Chastity and the rest of the districts if they felt like this would be a burden. I don't, one of our colleagues just sent me a message that in some cases a smaller farm might pay for a CNMP in hopes of getting a storage, but then if they don't get funding, they've paid for a CNMP that, they didn't get that storage for. But there's so many other benefits with developing a CNMP and, things they learn about their farm, how to manage nutrients. They'll have that CNMP to support all of their farmstead initiatives, all of their other resource concern areas, and also have that in their back pocket if they want to apply the next year or to another funding program. So, all in all, it's still lining up, and you really need that information for, to plan any of these practices. Even some of the stuff is even related to 313 standards with, a bedded pack. How long are we going to store these nutrients, the manure, the bedding, and then also, do we have a really good plan for the size of this thing, the duration, and then where do we go with it once it's time to empty those facilities? So, once again, we'll revisit this with the TAC and also bring more information to the state committee when we're ready to iron things out for round 27 and also update these other program policies. Brian, did you want to give some guidance to the state committee on just what kind of authorization we're looking for here, or?
Yeah, no, you know what? Since we've discussed it, and this is a really good discussion here today as well. I don't think we need any motion from the state committee, but just general acknowledgement that this is the right track to move toward, and we can continue the discussion at our next TAC meeting, then bring the recommendation when we have it more baked in and complete at the next state committee meeting or after the next TAC meeting. Does that sound good to you, Dale? Erica and Dave and Darren?
Yep. Sounds good to me.
Yep, sounds good to me too.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks. More to come. Ron, I think you still have the presentation.
Okay, so along with updating some of our documents and program materials, what we're looking at here is our agricultural best management practice systems catalog. Don't look at the spelling. That's kind of an inside joke on how we spell catalog from the past. But this document is kind of instrumental in how we package up best management practice systems and their component BMPs. This is how we, group all of our resource concerns in the practices that are going to treat those under a consistent heading, under consistent language, and we float these through our Ag Non-Plan program as well as our CNMPs, planning, and even in our partnering agencies like NRCS and some of the planning protocols there, the CNMP checklist that planners use while developing CNMPs for farms. This is kind of something the state committee maintains, and it allows everyone to kind of be consistent with these topic areas through planning and implementation. So we kind of ironed this thing out in 2014. We did a slight update in 2016. And here's just kind of a list of some of these systems that are in there. And these are just one page showing, we define them, the water quality purpose, pollutants control, system descriptions, where they're used, common component practices that are in there, and some of the operation and maintenance requirements in general. These are not like you know, taken all the way to the end. It's kind of like the most general basic applications of these systems. So what we're proposing is opening these up for revisions, and we don't want it to be a burden to us or the TAC or soil and water districts or planners or programs throughout the state. So what we would be doing is an annual look at these, and any revisions or additions to this Ag BMP catalog would be on an annual basis. We would present any changes to the TAC or the state committee and do it. And if there aren't any, we simply would just make a motion or acknowledge that there were no updates in this calendar year. But some of the updates, just to kind of hint at what we're looking at, is bringing some of these existing systems and their language up to current NRCS standards or planning protocols. We have some new systems to add, like a forest conservation system that's being highlighted in our AEM program. We have collaborated initially. Paula Bagley from NRCS has reviewed these and sent back some really good modifications or ideas that would allow NRCS to really use these in their programs as well, in their guidance to planners. So our goal is to kind of freshen these up, make them as conducive to anyone that wants to use them consistently throughout the state, and have kind of an ongoing protocol for updates going forward. Any other comments or questions about the Ag BMP catalog?
Thank you, Ron. That was a great description of the discussion that we had. And as you mentioned already, we talked about forestry, forest management. There's reforestation efforts going on beyond what we would consider riparian forest buffer, for example. We've seen some practices like that being implemented under our CRF program. We have a lot of water management practices that are also being completed through CRF for resiliency, both on farms and in communities. So we're looking at things like the stormwater manual, for example, and green infrastructure where it's appropriate. So there's a whole host of different practice systems that we could add to this catalog, where originally was intended for our Ag Non-Point program, our water quality program, and we have expanded since and are still using this. And for the most part works very well for our multiple program purposes. But you know, again, thank you for your initiative here, Ron, and you know, moving forward with a more regular update encompassing new practices, new technologies, and new ways to complete practices for multiple environmental benefits. So I'm excited about this prospect and this, you know, project moving forward.
Yep, and one final thing, round 27 is probably going to be our target goal, so that way we can, you know, move on with any of these revisions or program guidance materials and policies at the same time. So that's just kind of a heads up on when we would be bringing more information back to the group.
Good. Anything else, Ron?
Nope, that's it for these two topic areas.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to Ag Non-Points with Jason and Bethany.
Yeah, so Jason, I'm going to pass the presentation over to you. Okay. I can find you. There you are. To go over the program status, and then I will take it back for amendments. So. Looks like you've got the driver's seat.
Okay. Can you see the dashboard?
Not yet.
Okay.
It's up on mine. Good.
It's up on yours, Dale?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I will send it out too. Hopefully it comes through. It says I'm sharing screen too, but this is the most recent update of our database. There's a delay between where, you know, regional AEs are and where this gets updated, but Currently, we have 177 active contracts totaling 59.9 million, 47 pending contracts totaling 16.3 million, and 766 completed contracts totaling 119.7 million. And that's it for where we are. And like I said, things are updating a little slower because of COVID, but we're working on a new system to update the database quicker. So I will share this with the agenda after the meeting. That's it for me.
Jason, I'll take the presentation back to go over the amendments, but do you have your regional program report readily available to show everybody?
I do.
Okay, so maybe we'll go through the amendments while you get that pulled up, and then I'll pass it back to you. But I think that's a really nice depiction of the program status, by region across the state.
Sure, you got it. I'll share that in a bit.
So back to me. So we have, I believe, three, let me zoom out here, a few time extensions and one actual budget change that requires state committee approval for this month's meeting. What you all should be seeing on the screen right now is just the summary sheet that is usually passed out at the meetings. So I'm not going to read through the actual description or the reason for the request for each, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to let me know. So the first amendment request that we have is from Niagara County for a Round 23 project. They are requesting a 1-year time extension. And as you can see, the summary is here. It's also highlighted in the amendment packet that was forwarded to all the voting members yesterday. This time extension is supported by Victor DiGiacomo, Region 1 AEA, but is referred to the state committee. Vic, I don't know if you want to add any additional comments on this one, or if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I'll just add briefly, this project includes 5 farms to complete a number of cover crop acreage throughout Niagara County. One of those farms fell behind in their 3-year planned approach to completing that acreage due to some uncooperative weather last season, and they're looking for an additional planting season to get that 3rd year planted this year. And I fully support that extension.
Any further discussion or questions, anyone? Motion to approve.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Approved. Next one.
All right, next one is from Broome County Soil and Water Conservation District. They're requesting a 6-month time extension for a Round 22 project. Their current contract end date is June 30th of 2020, and they're looking to extend it out to December 31st. Again, the details of the amendment request have been highlighted in the packet that was forwarded yesterday, and this extension request is supported by PJ Emmerich, Region 2 AEA, and referred to the state committee.
Any comments, PJ?
No, this is just one where because of COVID-19, just like everything else, there was some delay in contractors understanding when they could work and when they couldn't, and so that resulted in a little bit of a delay. There is active construction underway, but again, the practices won't be totally completed and signed off on by the June deadline, so they're hoping to go to the end of the year to give them that much more time to get those projects.
Any questions, comments, anyone? Motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved. And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
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 Approved. Next one.
Great. The next one is from Cortland County Soil and Water for a round 24 project. This contract doesn't actually end until March 1st of 2022, but they are looking to extend it for some additional time to November 27th of 2023. There's kind of some special circumstances with this one. It is a planning grant, and unfortunately the district lost the staff member that was going to be doing the plans has left the district, and they have not been able to hire a replacement, so they're requesting an extension so they have the full 3 years allowed for these types of grants in order to develop the plans. So further details are included in the amendment packet. This one is also supported by PJ Emmerich, Region 2 AEA, but referred to the state committee.
Anything, PJ?
No, nothing on that. Thank you, Dale, other than to say I would, of course, support that amendment from Cortland County.
Anybody, any other questions or comments? Motion to approve, please.
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, I'll get one of them as a second, please.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
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 Approved. Thank you.
Okay, and the last amendment is actually a budget amendment. Also comes from Cortland County on the same contract that just requested the time extension. This is our first formal budget amendment, and the reason why we're bringing it to the state committee today is because the budget change that they are requesting is in excess of 10% of the total contract amount. And per the requirements in the department's master contract, we are required to get or to do a formal amendment of the contract and get reapprovals from the state comptroller and the attorney general. So in addition to that, we also need to get the state committee approval for this budget change as well. The full details are highlighted in the amendment packet that was sent, but they are requesting a change in the budget, and they want to move approximately $20,000 from the personal services line to the contractual services line. And this is also a result of the staff person that was going to be developing the nutrient management plans leaving, and the district is going to actually use those funds that were going to be paid to that staff person, and they're going to be hiring outside planner services to complete those CNMPs. So the amount being moved is approximately 26% of the total contract amount. So that's why we're reaching out to the committee today. PJ Emmerich, Region 2 AEA, supports this request and refers to the state committee.
Comments, PJ?
No, thank you, Dale. I think the description really hit the nail on the head, and I would support this request as well from Cortland.
We haven't really done much of this, Brian. Any issue you think of comptrollers?
Well, just like you said, we haven't done it yet. So Bethany has had conversations with our counsel's office and fiscal office. We have weekly meetings with them, and brought this to their attention. And they really couldn't provide much insight as far as what OSC's response would likely be, but we have good justification by way of the amendment form, and this added step of bringing it to your attention and getting a committee vote should go even further toward OSC approving this. That's our plan. But right, like you said, we haven't done this before, and we will we'll see how this process goes, if it's any different than time extensions.
No, they've got strong justification though. So, any other comments, questions, anyone? Motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
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 Approved. Thank you.
Great, thank you, everybody. Before I jump to round 26, update for everyone, I'm going to pass the presentation back to Jason to show everybody the regional program status report.
Sure. Okay. So I made little mini dashboards for each region that gives the breakdown for ag non-points since round 19, which is the earliest round that we still have active contracts. Again, I'm going to provide this with the minutes, or we're going to provide with the minutes after the meeting, so we can go through the table on your own. But I'll just give you the quick breakdown of contract statuses for each region. I'm just going to rifle them off quick. So in Region 1, 26 completed contracts for $7.2 million, 50 active for $16.9 million, and 15 pending for $3.6 million. In Region 2, 42 were complete for $8.7 million, 47 are active for $3.9 million, and 14 are pending for $6.1 million. In Region 3, 25 completed for $5.3 million, 46 active for $15.9 million, and 10 pending for $4.5 million. Region 4, the North Country, 21 completed for $4.7 million, 22 are active for $9.4 million, and 7 are pending for $1.6 million. And then finally, downstate, Region 5, 5 completed for $457,000, 9 active for $2.4 million, and 1 is pending for $453,000. Here's a breakdown, and I can discuss it if anyone needs now or after the meeting.
That's good. A lot of good information.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. And these will also be appended to each one of the regional reports that we're going to give here in a few minutes. Thank you.
So I'll pass it back then.
Okay, so just to round out, I guess, my section of this meeting, I'm going to give everybody an update on round 26 of the Ag Non-Point Source Program. So on Monday, June 15th, round 26 closed, and in response to the RFP, we received 111 applications. We have completed our eligibility and completeness reviews on all of the applications and have determined that they are all eligible to be scored. There will be a few that will receive penalty points because they submitted incomplete applications. But given everything that folks had to go through this year in order to get the application submitted, I think that is a really positive response, and the fact that we only had like two or three that are going to be receiving penalty points, it is really a success. So just as a reminder for everyone, in round 26, we have $15 million available to fund projects. After entering all of our information into our grand spreadsheet, the overall total project cost from all of the applications is approximately $52 million. And of that, the total state funds being requested is approximately $35 million. And if we want to compare back to round 25, approximately $30 million was requested from the state. In round 26, 245 farms were included in the applications. Of those, 45 are CAFO operations. 59 farms are proposing to implement cover crops for a total of approximately 41,000 acres, which is a huge increase from round 25, where only 22 farms were proposing cover crops for a total of 6,100 acres. So a really good response there. 76 waste storages are being proposed through this round, and 48 farms are proposing to implement riparian buffer systems. And when you break that down further, approximately 17 acres of those will be forested buffer, and 47 acres will be herbaceous buffer. So our steps moving forward, I will be hosting a pre-review meeting on Thursday with all of the reviewers who will be tasked with looking at each of these applications and scoring them. And hopefully we will be ready to bring a rank list to the committee in the late summer, early fall for your approval. Any questions on round 26 response?
The project's getting a lot bigger, more expensive.
Yes, there were a number of applications that were requesting over $1 million from the state.
Okay.
I just, before moving on, not a question, but just a comment. I'd like the voting members and, all on the phone to know that, as Bethany said, this really is a resounding success with all the districts have been going through over the last few months, and we extended this grant deadline a couple of times. Certainly, the challenges the farmers are under as well. Is also worth mentioning that we've had such a successful round of proposals to come in, and also given the fact that we're not all working together under one roof and able to communicate one-on-one directly, all of the information that Bethany just explained couldn't be possible without Bethany managing the effort with all of the staff contributing toward gathering all this information, reviewing proposals for completeness and eligibility, and then moving them forward for Bethany's final determination. So I couldn't be more pleased with how our team has come together with what looks like a record year of in both number and amount requested of proposals to get to this point in just about a week's time. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Anything else on round 26, Bethany?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay. Move on to climate resilient farming. Jason.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
This is Asim Kumar from New York State DEC. So Bethany, when these projects will be distributed for scoring, and what is the likely time frame we will be getting it to review it?
So we have our meeting on Thursday morning, I believe, and we'll talk about timeline then. What the deadline would be for you guys, but I should have them all ready to pass out to you after our meeting on Thursday.
That's fine. Thank you.
No problem. So right now, Jason still has the controls. I don't know, Jennifer, do you want to take over the presentation, or should I still leave it with Jason?
I see Jennifer's line is, just unmuted. Okay.
Yep, just realized that. You can leave it with Jason. I don't have anything to present on screen.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Just unmuted myself. So the program says for CRF, there are 63 active contracts totaling $6.5 million, 0 pending contracts, and 9 completed contracts totaling $1.2 million in our database records at this time. From CRF, the regional status, the Western New York Region 1, there are 6 completed through the whole history of the program for $892,000. 13 are active for $1.5 million, and of course, no pending again. So for Region 2, the Finger Lakes region, there was 1 completed for $26,000 and 23 active for just under $3 million. For Region 3, 1 completed. Oh, excuse me, no. Sorry, that was an error there. I'll have to come back to that one. So Region 4, we have 1 completed for $158,000 and 9 are active for $876,000. And Region 5, downstate, 2 completed for $225,000 and 1 active for just under $90,000. And that's the status for Region 5. We'll come back to that for the regional reports. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jason. So I just have a brief update for CRF. Round 5, the state committee approved the ranks list back in April, and we had received 47 applications under round 5, and we have $4 million that we will be awarding, and we are all set to make those awards once we are able to move forward with that. And that's where we're at with CRF.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we don't have any amendments today. I put that on the agenda just in case. So we actually are now ahead of schedule, unless there are questions or comments. Dale, are you still with us?
Yeah, hang on. I got to learn how to non-mute this thing without touching it. Forgetting that.
No worries.
All right.
I think Bethany is going to get the regional reports ready here, and we have them all together so regional staff can go through their reports for everybody, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
So they should be on your screen right now whenever we're ready.
Yep. They are. Before we move into this topic, just wanted to, let everybody know we have staff meetings every Friday. We did that before. We were all forced to work from home. We continued that throughout the course of the last few months here. Everybody being remote. During each one of those staff meetings, we would devote time for our regional AEAs to give an update on district work, progress, challenges through the COVID-19 public health crisis. And I thought it would be good for the regional staff to present to all of you today as an agenda item. As I was thinking that, and Dale and I talked a couple of weeks ago, he independently brought that same topic up as an important point to pass along to the committee. So I want to hand it off to, starting with Victor DiGiacomo, Region 1, Western New York, and each one of the regional coordinators today on the phone will present here to the committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Region 1, as I said earlier, I'm the Regional Associate Environmental Analyst for Region 1. Region 1 is the furthest western region of New York State. Just for background, it includes counties including Erie, Niagara, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, Allegheny, Wyoming, Genesee, Orleans, Monroe, Wayne, Livingston, and Steuben. And in total, Western New York Region 1 includes most of the Western Great Lakes watershed of New York State, but also includes a portion of the Western Finger Lakes Basin and also a portion of the Southern Tier watersheds that actually discharge to the south towards Pennsylvania. So with that background completed, I wanted to get a little bit into what occurred in Region 1 over the past few months. Like all areas of the state, Region 1 was heavily impacted by COVID-19 response and the subsequent pause closure that Governor Cuomo instituted back in mid-March. Immediately, all districts in Western New York and Region 1 shuttered their doors to the general public and began what they thought was going to be an initial 2-week phase to, quote unquote, bend the curve. And once we all realized that the 2-week bend the curve scenario was lengthened into a month and then into, I think we're going on 3+ months now, policies and avenues of how to proceed and how to operate needed to be amended and augmented at an individual county level. And each county in Region 1 made those changes fantastically and in conjunction with their own local needs and responses to the general public's needs as well. Excuse me. So in doing so, they need to reconsider how to operate and how to move forward, how to do that in an effective manner and still provide those needed services to the general public. And as I said, they all did that in their own individual and unique way. In total, a majority of the districts in Region 1 deployed a work from home strategy for their staff. Initially, there was some district staff in offices assisting with some of the the duties and tasks that required somebody to actually be in the office. Processing mail, processing any financial obligations, any financial instruments that needed to be pushed through this time, through this pause. So there was some back and forth in the offices for staff. Typically, that was the district manager and or possibly the clerk. But in total, most district staff for the past few months have been working from home. And in a nutshell, it has been working fairly well. I think initially there might have been some hiccups technically, trying to determine how to actually get the employees to work effectively at home. Not all district staff going into the pause had all of the technical resources to support work from home, and there were various ways on how those things were accomplished. Procurement for additional technical resources, assistance through county assistance, and most predominantly the use of private equipment and private personal equipment at home to continue to do their jobs. So recently, and I'd say in the past few weeks, most Region 1 counties have slowly started to migrate back into the offices. I'd say about 90% of the counties in Region 1 are currently at full staff back in the offices. There are a couple that are at 50% capacity and slowly following their adopted plans to get themselves back up to speed in the offices, following all policies and procedures that have been put in place related to social distancing and preservation of and sanitization of common areas in offices, and all of those types of procedures and policies are currently being developed and have been developed in some reopening plans for most of Region 1 counties. All 7 districts in Region 1 that are co-located with NRCS, those doors remain closed to the general public as they are all following USDA's reopening strategy, which is slightly different than the New York State strategy, but very consistent in the sense that it is a phased approach, albeit that the phases don't essentially line up perfectly. But if you read both strategies, they make complete sense. So most 7 districts are still closed to the general public, but most employees are in the offices working. For those counties that are not co-located with NRCS, 3 of those 5 counties are also still closed to the general public, with 2 accepting appointments appointments only in the office for the general public as needed. Regarding financial impacts to Region 1, given what has occurred over the past few months and what will proceed over, I'm sure, the next 12 months. I think you'll hear this theme throughout the next 4 regions and their regional reports, is that in essence it's just built a little too early to assess the general impacts overall. Only about 25% of the counties in Region 1 have had any formal discussions with their local county regarding appropriations for 2021, and some minor discussions related to this year's appropriations. But in total, no county has really committed to what exactly the financial impacts will be going forward. Most counties are giving districts an idea of what to expect, worst case scenario. Those expectations across the board range from anywhere from, on average, 10 to 25% cuts for next year to an extreme scenario of a total cut to an appropriation for 2021 in one county. So we're hopeful that as the regions of the state continue to reopen and those tax dollars and those sales tax dollars start to roll back into New York State, and hopefully when and if there is a federal stimulus bailout that may include state governments and local governments, we'll have a better handle on what the financial impacts are going to be for most of the districts in New York State. Most districts in Region 1 are, however, anticipating a cut at some level, so they're preparing plans in a triage approach for 2021 to essentially shrink budgets, cut where they can, worst case scenario types of events. So as I said, I think we'll learn a little bit more about that over the next couple of months. Other than that, given that we have been on pause and state employees have been working from home in a modified capacity, as regional analysts, I think all of us have found out that we still have pretty effectively been able to engage with our districts virtually and remotely. Most districts have pushed forward and engaged with their regional EAs in this capacity as well. County Soil and Water District boards have convened virtual WebEx and other types of alternative board meetings on a monthly basis, and we've been able to assist and participate with those. In total, I was able to attend 17 meetings remotely, which I think is a record. I think a few of us were able to attend 3 to 4 meetings a day, given that we didn't have to travel X amount of hours to get to a board meeting. So in hindsight, that actually worked out really well, given the alternative meeting locales. State committee grants, nothing has really stopped in regards to the administration of those. I'm sorry if you hear that dinging. I'm getting a lot of bells in my ears, and hopefully you don't hear that either. Continuance of administration of existing grants and reviewing some Ag Non-Point Round 26 potential applications that occurred over the last couple months. And it really has been a great back and forth given the in-person restrictions in total, which is a great surprise. 31 of those 111 Ag Non-Point Round 26 applications came from Region 1 counties. It's great to see, and my fingers are crossed and thumbs are up in the air, hopeful that most of those applications will get funded in Round 26. Other than that, I've also been assisting my districts with review of their AEM 5-year strategies, which are due in 2021. Those strategies are a high-level umbrella approach to assist districts with providing a framework and a path forward to their AEM local programs for the next 5 years. And those plans are slowly coming in for review, and I'm eager to get the remainder plans in hand so I can get those reviewed as well. I've also been working with state committee staff and DEC and to establish another round of a watershed-specific funding through the Ecosystem Space Management Program through DEC. Discussions are ongoing for that, and we hope to see, I believe, an RFA out sometime later this year. Other than that, I'll just say in closing that it's been an interesting couple months, and even though I have been in frequent contact with a majority of my districts over the last couple months, it's going to be a welcome change to start to get into those field offices, see a lot of people face to face, attend board meetings in person, and really get back to the normal way of doing business. And with that, I will yield for any questions that I may have and for the next regional report.
Any questions, anyone? Thank you, Vic. Yeah, it's uncharted territory for everyone, I think. PJ.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Sorry about that. I had some technical issues earlier. I got disconnected from WebEx and everything else. So hopefully everybody can hear me okay and that doesn't happen again.
Yep.
Region 2
Loud and clear.
Covers some. Great. Thank you. Region 2 covers several counties in the Finger Lakes region and upper Susquehanna River watersheds, and the counties include Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, Ontario, Yates, Schuyler, Tompkins, Cortland, Chemung, Tioga, and Broome, and those are the 11 counties in the Finger Lakes and upper Susquehanna River region, watershed region. And so, just like Victor said, in March of 2020, shortly after our annual Water Quality Symposium, which is our largest training event across the state, the COVID-19 pandemic really began to cause a lot of disruptions to all the offices, district offices and everything. And a lot of the employees were required to work remotely from home and in some cases eliminate for a brief period field visits or at least greatly reduce those field visits. So that caused a significant challenge. But despite those challenges, I was still able to assist my districts in a few ways to keep necessary business and projects and programs moving forward. Regarding some of the financial impacts, I did reach out to all my districts and have been in frequent contact with them in the region. It's still a little too early at this point to determine what may lay ahead this year and for 2021. Currently, there's 3 districts in the region that have been informed they will receive some cuts to their 2020 Q3 and Q4 appropriations and also to their 2021 appropriations as well. The remaining districts haven't been told formally that they're going to be cut, but that may be coming as we approach soil and water district budget season here in the next month or so. But all those districts are anticipating the possibility of maybe a 10 to 20% decrease in the 2021 county appropriation. So I'll certainly keep an eye on that and continue to keep in contact with the districts as we move forward on that regard. So just a brief overview of some of what I've been able to assist the districts with since March after the symposium. I've done a few Ag Non-Point Source closeouts. I completed 4 of those, and there's more coming in. Districts in Region 2 were also able to submit 24 Ag Non-Point Source Round 26 applications, and I thought that was tremendous in light of all these challenges. So certainly real proud of those districts there. Also in Region 2, Ontario, Seneca, Onondaga, and Yates continue to implement 17 of what we call the Genesee Finger Lakes Erosion and Sediment Control Grants through our ecosystem-based management program. So we're happy that those projects are still moving forward as well. I did do 1 remote board training that worked out pretty good. We just had a small minor technical glitch at the beginning of the meeting for a few moments, and once that was ironed out, it worked great. Sound quality was good, and they were able to go through the training with me with no problem. I have attended 10 board meetings remotely through WebEx and Zoom and other platforms, and it's worked very good, able to provide our reports and answer some questions as they come up in that format, so certainly happy to do that. Regarding the Eastern Finger Lakes cover crop projects, we've kept that moving with the districts taking the lead on that. We've had teleconferences, and I was able to submit the required May 2020 interim reports and haven't heard anything back yet on DEC with any questions. So assuming that report was okay with them. I also attended several of the Employees Association managers meeting conference calls, and I found those to be very, very informative, and certainly want to give a lot of credit to the Employees Association for getting those set up. It's always good to keep in touch with managers, not only here in my region, but across the state as well. That's very beneficial. I'm also working with other state committee staff, with Brian and Lauren and Vic, on working with DEC to begin establishing another round of the Genesee Finger Lakes EBM grants for districts in our region. Work is ongoing on that. The ball's in DEC's court at this point, but we just wanted to say thank you to DEC for their work with us on that endeavor. So we're looking forward to revamping those conference calls here shortly once we hear back from DEC, and very happy for their support. The Arowasco meetings have still been going on remotely, and that's been fantastic. I've been working with Bethany, Brian, and Greg on that, and we're able to actually remote in all the way over to Australia with no problems, I guess. Not on our end anyway. It's probably on their end. They have to get up at 3 in the morning to talk to us, but that's okay, I guess, on our end. I was also able to keep my professional stormwater certifications current by using some online YouTube training videos for some professional development hours. I've been reading some stuff online as well, so that's certainly good to do when you have a few moments. Encourage other people to take advantage of that too if you get a chance. I've also been in frequent contact with all my districts regarding the closing and now reopening plans, budgets, state committee contract updates, and other district operation topics. And I will continue to do that both through the board meetings and also just through regular phone calls and things of that sort. So I encourage my districts, as things come up, by all means, call me. I'll be happy to help out in any way that I can, especially as we get reopening. I'd be happy to come down to the offices as well. Ryan and I certainly have not forgot about the municipal subcommittee meeting that was scheduled earlier this year. And of course, in light of COVID, we're going to have to reschedule that. Right now, we're sort of tentatively shooting for sometime this fall. We're hoping to have something more finalized as we see where this whole thing goes with being able to meet in person and hopefully no second resurgence of the virus. So we're going to keep an eye on that. And that committee, for those who don't know or who may have forgot, that's comprised of representatives from our office, from DEC, and the soil and water districts. And that committee covers all of the municipal topics that may be of interest to us and the district as well. So that's certainly a very good committee. We try and meet at least once a year and more frequently as needed. So we'll continue that effort. I'm also assisting with the 2020 Con Skills Workshop planning effort with the Employees Association and many others. We're going to look at that some more, and hopefully we'll be able to have some great topics this year and courses, albeit maybe a different format. Also assisting several of my districts here in the region later this year to help provide the New York State DEC 4-hour and erosion sediment control course if the guidelines allow. If we can have in-person trainings with the appropriate social distancing and masks and things like that, I'd be more than happy to go down to any of my districts, or if people need a handover and work with Vic in Region 1 or Scott, any of the other regions, I'd be happy to help those districts and sponsor a training as a co-instructor. I know from experience having to talk for 4 hours in those things by yourself is not a lot of fun, and probably people like having different instructors, I think, once in a while. At least I found that from my experience. So if anything like that comes up, I would be more than happy to help out. And really, just to kind of close, the districts in Region 2 here have created a lot of detailed reopening plans and have really been working closely, which I think is a good thing, not only with their boards, but with the county officials as they transition back to full-time in-office staffing, and some are welcoming clients by appointment, and as we move forward past that. So I'm very happy to see that, and I'd be happy to help any way I can if things come up with that. The districts also continue to move forward. Very happy to see that, utilizing our AIM program to plan and implement projects. And things are continuing to go in here across our suite of programs within the region. I'll continue to be in frequent contact, of course, as I said earlier, with my districts, and remain committed, of course, to assisting the region, the staff, the board, anybody who needs help any way I can. I'd be more than happy to do it as we move forward to meet the opportunities and the challenges this year may bring. And I certainly appreciate the opportunity to provide this report, and I'd be happy to try and answer any specific questions anybody might have.
Gotta hit that D button all the time. Any questions to PJ? Thanks, PJ. Very good. Okay, who's next on our list? Get my hand it back up again.
Scott Pickbon, Region 3.
Scott's on list now.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Region 3 report. Hopefully you have a hard copy of it there, at least for the voting members to have a look at. Region 3 covers 13 counties. They're all listed there. You may have a map provided to you to take a look at the actual location of the counties, but I'd say in large portion they cover the Mohawk watersheds, extending south down into the Delaware River watershed, and catching Delaware County is, of course, involved in the New York City watershed, extending west into the Susquehanna. And it's a very interesting region. It really spans, I think, the gamut of what soil and water conservation districts do, from offices that are heavily ag-oriented, really partnering and in a lot of cases co-located with NRCS, to the other side of the spectrum where ag is perhaps not the focus or the primary focus of the district, but stormwater or invasives or any number of other things that districts do. It's really a good region to work with. And as things sort of unfolded, I suppose, as we understood more and more about COVID-19 and what we were going to have to do, and especially districts were going to have to do in response, I'll be short and echo, I think, a lot of what Vic and PJ have already said. The districts, it seemed, to take guidance from a number of different places, whether it was the guidance that the state was providing, their county Department of Health, perhaps. For those that were co-located with NRCS, it was NRCS. And in some cases and in significant ways, the landlord of the building that they occupy sort of set the rules for how the close down was going to take place and for how long, and also for the opening up policy. So, but I would add, I think, really sort of amazing to watch the districts, you know, all of them across the state, through conversations with, you know, the AEAs, Brian mentioned the Friday calls, how they adapted and really did, I thought, you know, I guess everybody would say quite well, to, you know, using innovative approaches, being flexible, you know, the ever-present pragmatism that you get with districts. And in retrospect, as I think the report will bear out a little bit, you know, aside from the initial disruption, I think people adapted really well and were able to continue doing business in certain areas where they could sort of obey the social distancing and other precautions that were in place. They really hammered those things hard. So really good. I think from a programmatic perspective, when I go to board meetings, as PJ and Vic mentioned, you're able to do a lot remotely. You hear a really impressive stream of accomplishments, but also a growing focus on the financial side of things and trying to read the tea leaves, not only for the remainder of this year, but looking into next year. So like PJ, I'm just going to run through a few things that I've done with my region over the past several months. And if anybody has any questions or wants to comment on any of it, please don't hesitate to just speak up there. So also had a number of Agnon Point Source and CRF closeouts to be done. It was a good example of that adaptation, you know, working with the manager to get all the paperwork without visiting the office, with, saving all that stuff sort of towards the end. And as things opened up a bit and practicing all the protocols, we could get out and view sometimes what is a lot of paperwork and also do those farm visits. But really went pretty well. I managed to do a district staff training over the phone, really just going over the broad basics of our AIM and Agnon Point Source programs with some people who have been recently hired. And you know, this is one of their very first experiences with district was having to deal with COVID. But, you know, in the run up to round 26, I wanted to make sure that they had their feet on the ground. And also during this time, I think that all the AAs would say generally fielding questions or approaches to round 26 discussions with districts about format and writing. So that took up a fair amount of time. As I mentioned, I did attend some board meetings, and I am in favor of the remote meetings. My third week has 9 board meetings during that week, and it was really neat to be able to hit so many of them back to back, and it really lends some continuity of what you're hearing and the ability to compare and contrast what's happening in different offices. So I think that part of it is neat, although I think, as I'll get into a little bit later, many of the boards are really looking forward to meeting in person again. Like the other AEAs, we did attend a lot of Employees Association meetings, and tip of the hat to Chaz for pulling that off. And I really found it informative, just another way to understand what's going on and try to connect the dots. And then with that information, sort of do things, position yourself so that you can be responsive to your district's needs. And I thought that was a really great development in the response to all of this. And there was a lot of information sharing. I'll give a shout out to Delaware County, who is typically a pretty good policy shop. They like to have written policies, and they write them really well. And they shared a lot of their documents, as did others, Tompkins, I believe, and some others. And districts really do look at those things, modify them for their own circumstances. And there's a lot of collaboration out there in that sense. Coalition-wise, I work with the Mohawk River Coalition of Districts, and we are just taking our first steps with a sediment reduction agreement funded by DEC and sort of administered through Ag and Markets to the coalition. And we made some good decisions on allocations of funding. We've got training set up, or though postponed, I might say, and that's another sidebar conversation going forward, but also planning efforts and implementation. And this is really a coordinated effort to engage municipalities in not only addressing hotspots that they are well aware of post-flood event, but to do it in a way that they're not really creating themselves additional problems down the road. Really sort of valuable agreement and good deliverables there. Also worked with Brian and Maureen and the Albany staff to close out our CREP agreement with USC. That's probably not the best way to describe it, but it is an agreement that we have with DEC, also backed by, with USC, backed by DEC, to really promote and facilitate the CREP program in the Susquehanna River, paying incentives for folks that plant forest buffers, along with a whole string of really, I think, good deliverables in terms of doing the proper monitoring and maintenance activities long-term that we now understand are really required for successful buffer implementation. So we closed out the previous grant. We wrote a new agreement, I should say, expanded the deliverables, expanded the funding, and they are really knocking it out of the house. I mean, they were, I'll mention, given the Arbor Day Foundation National Award this year for planting trees, and their buffer team, and frankly all their team, are really really good at what they do. So also along the lines of buffers, work with Brian and others to prepare for what will be upcoming negotiations for our New York State PrEP agreement. We have to renegotiate this or not, sort of as a result of the 2018 Farm Bill and how that has modified the program. There are some really good things in the new Farm Bill that we get by default, considering the language that's in our agreement. In some key places, it just refers to whatever rules are in place for the continuous sign-up CRP program. But there are some other things that we would like to add. Primarily, we have mid-contract management payments or maintenance payments for riparian buffers, which would be a really nice thing to have. But there's some negotiation to be done, and I think come Thursday I'm going to be talking with Washington D.C. FSA representatives and have more to report after that. So During that time too, I think like others, we spent a lot of time calling districts, emailing districts, trying to stay close, but not getting their hair too much. Like I mentioned before, find out information that helps us do our job. For the board meetings, as I mentioned, most are, or I think all but one at the moment, are still doing remote meetings, whether they're conference calls or some sort of like software-enabled WebEx or Zoom meeting. I think the response to it's been across the board. Some like it, some not so much. But I think a pretty commonly held opinion is that they would like to start to see one another again and resume in-person meetings. And some strategies I've heard for that are outdoor meetings, really big rooms where people can spread out, you know, cafeterias and the like. So that's all on the table, I suppose. I skipped cost-sharing programming. I want to get to that. The region has about 25 contracts that are expiring this winter, making this season the last construction season. So we really have been spending some time focusing on the status of those contracts, working with the districts, encouraging them to find out from the farmer whether they need an extension, whether, you know, the economy has just turned such that they can no longer do the project, or, you know, it's still going ahead as planned. And you know, surprisingly to me, most of them, the majority of them, are still, I think, planning to close out this construction season. So that's really amazing. We may see a little wave of extension requests maybe come up later in the year, but based on the conversations, it seems to be going ahead pretty well. On budgets, you know, as I mentioned, kind of a focus on budgets now. Did some calling and talking to folks about that. Most of the districts in Region 3 receive their county allocations over time. Only a few, a couple maybe, receive them up front. Those that do already receive them without any cut, and I guess they were, you know, lucky to get in when they did. Others that receive it either quarterly or twice a year, I didn't get many reports of having those payments delayed or cut, but I think as folks have mentioned, there's been discussions, there's been like heads up messages sent from county legislatures to districts that, you know, there's conversations going on, although the district perhaps doesn't know the exact number. 20 to 25% is something you hear mentioned as a guess. And two, on top of that, is also sort of not having heard about cuts for next year, but perhaps expecting them, and even now budgeting for potential, you know, different scenarios depending on what ultimately unfolds. Other discussions were just to make sure that folks knew about the Part C policy, whereby districts could use Part C money to pay for district time to implement projects, or you know, as we all know, the use is at their discretion. But that was one, you know, pot of money we were able to get out prior to this all settling in. So just making them aware that they might want to revisit what their plans were for that money. And I think most districts were already 2 or 3 steps ahead when the conversation rolled around to that, and had already done and taken and you know, done that kind of thinking and taken those kind of measures. So, and similarly for Part B, all, you know, all efforts aimed at keeping as much money in-house as possible to see until they know, I guess, what the longer term holds for them. I'm going to be assisting in the symposium planning. I'm looking forward to doing another employee orientation presentation. That was really great from the last symposium, and maybe expand on the buffer presentation that we gave last year. So I'm also looking forward to that. Just to wrap it up, I was really, I don't know if surprised is the right word, but happy to see the way the districts adapted to the changing environment all around them, and really impressed on how they were able to like select a lot of tasks that they had to do, like the tree sale that was right on the heels of the COVID-19 thing and how well that went. But other things like buffer plantings can be somewhat solitary work and good. Grant writing, certainly, that can be done at home. Procurement processes. Hydro seeding turned out to be a popular thing to start because you could easily adapt the safety protocols to that task. And as I mentioned, you really hear a long list of what the districts are up to when you go through those meetings. There doesn't seem to be any appreciable slowdown. It doesn't, at least in a lot of offices. So that's about it for me. I think going forward, I'll, obviously continue to do what I'm doing, but also pay, I think, extra attention to the financial side of things from our perspective as AEAs. We kind of are just a few feet above what the districts can see, and sometimes we can come up with things that work out for them and might help them to get through this time. So if anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Scott. Any questions, anyone? If not, move to Ryan.
Hey, Scott.
Yep, one question.
Yeah. Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
This is Paul Marzik from DOH. Are any of the counties at all hooked up with, the wind turbine farms and the solar farms? Is that something any of the counties have any activity in or not?
I hear it discussed occasionally at some board meetings, not necessarily as a piece of district business, but as a thing that folks in the room are aware of different plans. I think one county comes to mind, Shenango, I believe, put in a lot of time and effort looking at solar and grazing to see if they were compatible and what needed to be done to pull that off or at least look into it. But Paul, not too deeply, I guess would be my answer, but they're certainly aware, and it does come up from time to time. And I would ask any districts that are on the line right now that are dealing with it to speak up.
Okay.
Paul, this is PJ. In Region 2, some of the districts have been involved in the stormwater and erosion and sediment control inspections for some of the solar farm sites and a few other like stream crossing issues and things like that.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking, that there could be an intersection between district activities and because they're big construction projects, essentially.
The issue here in Western New York when it comes to the solar is that there's a 3,000 acre one being proposed, and it takes it out of all local control and just into Albany's control. And people are getting very angry over it. I don't know how that's going to impact into districts. People are upset that they don't have local say in a project this big.
Yeah, it's understandable. Yep.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Our agency, Ag and Markets, Ag Protection Unit within our division, working very closely with NYSERDA and others on solar siting as it impacts prime agricultural lands. So if that is a point of discussion we'd like to bring back to the committee for information at a future meeting, I can see if I can arrange a more thorough update.
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay, just made that note.
All right, good. Ryan?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Dale. Region 4, as it's listed there, includes all of the North Country and a couple adjacent counties. Major watersheds in this area, of course, are Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence River, along with the Mohawk, Upper Hudson Rivers, and Lake Champlain to the east. And it includes 10 counties listed there. I would echo most of what my colleagues have said as far as regional reports. At least initially, districts were faced with a lot of obstacles and sort of suddenly needed to reconsider how their normal business and programming would run. I give a lot of credit to districts and their boards for sort of efficiently and quickly making decisions, coming up with closing plans when needed, reopening plans when needed, kind of moving forward, making these decisions to get programming out there as best as possible. I know fieldwork was greatly reduced, at least initially. And, many programs were put on pause from the state and sort of a collateral effect of COVID, because a lot of municipalities and partners and businesses were also closing down. So things like supplies and parts for equipment suddenly were unavailable. So that sort of dictated where some of that programming went, particularly for things like hydro seeding. A lot of them transitioned into remote programming, so that did still take place. As we saw, grant writing was strong, with over 100 applications there for round 26. Some environthons took place within a few districts, and educational events took place remotely, which was nice to see. Tree sales shifted to deliveries in many cases, and eventually, as the weather broke, there was an occasional solo field work, which is allowable, with proper social distancing, of course, with landowners. Board meetings, it was kind of a nice change. I got to see a lot more faces a lot more frequently via Zoom or WebEx. Good attendance from directors, which is particularly important. Busy times of the year or winter, or as planting season begins, you tend to miss some people, so that was kind of nice, and it was an efficient way of communicating, able to keep district operations going. I think every month and every meeting I've attended, there's at least some discussion of budget cuts or where the budgets are at on a county basis. Of course, they have county legislators that sit on all these district boards, so you sort of hear some of the ominous signs of what's to come. And again, I think it's too early in many cases to accurately predict what's to happen in the next year. There's talk of 10 to 20% cuts, I know, just anecdotally hearing from many districts, and that's just some feedback that they've gotten from their counties. Of course, with others that we've seen, as we've seen for 2020, have even gotten higher cuts already. Mainly due to tax revenue and the reductions there, projected state cuts to county governments, just a lot of unknowns. So I think as people get programming up and running, contracts are put in place, stuff starts to roll out. There's still just a lot of unknowns there. So I think that the play is going to be conservative for a lot of things. To that end, I've helped significantly with a lot of questions on district aid and some of the changes, and I've sensed a lot of reprioritizing of funding to focus more on staff, particularly obviously with Part B and Part C projects. And again, some of these projects and executing these contracts are beyond the control of the districts, because a lot of these collaborative efforts with municipalities and schools and landowners were suspended anyway just because of lack of funding. So they've kind of had to regroup and see where to kind of focus some of those funds. So a lot of that's going to be focused on staff, which I think is good, and everyone kind of knows their own situation. And I think for the most part, on a short-term basis, people are looking okay. It's obviously the unknowns down the road, which many people are still wondering about. Throughout the last few months, a lot of assistance with policy and questions on district operations. Of course, a lot of questions have come up that we just don't have answers to or have never had the questions before. So we're, new territory for a lot of people. I give a lot of credit to Chad to put on the CDEA manager meetings every couple of weeks here through the winter and early summer. They were extremely helpful in answering questions and posing scenarios and hypotheticals for different districts, and trying to find group solutions to common questions. So that was certainly helpful. Early on, at least, there were some questions on construction, and I know that some of that's going to be delayed. That's sort of inevitable just from sort of lack of landowner funding or other prioritizations at this point. But at least initially, some confusion on construction and essential businesses and emergency work and available supplies. So quite a bit of time going back and forth and trying to interpret executive orders and then comparing those with county guidance. In many cases, we saw some conflicting things, which I guess was expected in these unknown circumstances. So we pushed through those as best as possible, the best way to handle those things, and we answered questions as we could. And of course, as everyone saw, things changed, if not on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. So we kind of kept in constant communication and made sure boards were aware of what was going on. And made the best decisions that we could at the time. So I think everyone did a fantastic job to that end. We did have a few counties in my region that had some new staff, and so they did kind of juggle replacing staff during this sort of unusual event with remote training and things of that nature. A big thing that came across was just how to deal with summer interns, and I think they had districts luckily had a few months to kind of consider that and to consider what the programming involved. Some districts decided not to go through with it just due to the programs that interns were going to be completing. It just wasn't feasible. You know, others that had, you know, some forestry programs or even some invasive species work where they could go out solo and kind of work outside the majority of the time without mixing in with a lot of other staff. We're able to kind of move forward with a reduced calendar there. So that ends up being about as good as you could hope as far as the summer goes. And basically everyone's just spent the last few months trying to find the best approaches to doing business. You know, as I said, there was a lot of conflicting information on essential businesses and non-essential, allowable field work, in-office staff, as with the other AEAs here and other districts. You know, across the state, districts had many different housing scenarios. You've got co-located with USDA, county-owned buildings, privately owned buildings. Landlords have different opinions on what should be done and where places should be open and not. Different requirements for cleaning and PPE and all that stuff. So I think for the most part, each district has found the best way forward. As far as I know, in most cases, the offices are not open to the public, but they are taking appointments only at this time, which is helpful to kind of keep track of their own staff and to keep business and programs running to that end and not have to worry about a constant interaction with the public when it's not necessary. Online meetings I mentioned, the Champlain Watershed Coalition has been active, been participating in those meetings and seeing how things are running there. I also sit on the Technical Advisory Committee for the Lake Champlain Basin Program. They've had meetings regularly throughout the late winter and early spring, kind of tracking federal funding to that end and kind of seeing on that scale where they project some shortfalls in the future, and that affects 5 counties in northeastern New York. Otherwise, programming is fairly busy. I know that, at least anecdotally, we're sort of expecting reduced constructions, particularly with some of our main grant programs, and we've seen that with some of the grant extensions that have come out. But I will say that the AEM program seems to be very busy, particularly with the new cost share track. A lot of questions on the new rules and the guidance there, and reading through the manual and getting people up and running. And I attribute that maybe partly just because they're smaller projects. People are on board to kind of complete those, and it's a little quicker of a process. So that's good to see. And along with that, you know, you've got districts that are, you know, revisiting their AEM strategies. A couple have submitted already, and they're going to be continuing those through the summer and fall and kind of pave a path to the next 5 years, as the other folks have mentioned. Quite a bit of assistance with grant management. Reviews of grant applications, a fair amount of closeouts from the CAFO, Waste Storage and Transfer System Program, the Ag Non-Point, Climate Resilient Farming. Due to the good weather, I've been able to do some limited field visits just to kind of move along some of these closeouts and to take a look in the field at some of these projects, which is nice to see, and kind of visit with folks at a socially distant as needed. But again, a lot of similar stuff to the other area analysts. A lot of the similar communications, keeping things open with folks, answering questions as best we can, and making sure business can continue as efficiently as possible given the circumstances. So I guess to kind of close up, at this moment, most districts have a plan to reopen. They've already been reopening all throughout June. I think the 3 counties I work with that are housed with USDA had a little bit of a slower opening just due to scheduling with NRCS and FSA and some of their priorities early on. But, you know, in a local arrangement there, they've been able to kind of come and go and do work as needed. So that's been good to see. No major hangups there. So otherwise, yeah, available for the summer to kind of help folks along and interpret policies along the way, help with grants, kind of keeping communication open and making sure no one falls behind on things we need to get done. kind of moving on from here. So I'll leave it at that unless there's any questions for me specifically for my region.
Thanks, Ryan. Good. Anybody questions? Ben.
All right, thanks, Dale. Region 5, it covers 12 districts, mostly in the Hudson Valley and Long Island, Lower Hudson, Mohawk, Delaware, Long Island Sound, and Atlantic Ocean watershed. I say 12 districts because of New York City is obviously made up of 5 counties in itself, so there's 16 counties altogether in this region. This region was obviously hit pretty hard and pretty early by the COVID. So by the second day of symposium, I was having many conversations with district staff that were at the symposium about what they were hearing going on back at home, whether it was the county starting to shut down already or trying to call all county employees back that were out, at trainings or in the field somewhere. Also receiving phone calls from many district employees that COVID was already hitting pretty close to home, family members, relatives, neighbors being affected already by it. So things started shutting down there, obviously, the week of the symposium on Long Island in the Lower Hudson Valley pretty quick. So it was pretty clear, pretty quick, this wasn't going to be something that we all got through very quickly, I guess. But overall, the general consensus is that working from home has gone very well, especially doing paperwork, getting the grant applications done for some districts has gone very well. Everybody's been working from home except for to go in the office to do some essential roles and responsibilities. Many of the districts are still working from home. Currently, there's only 3 of the districts that are back. There's a few more transitioning back this week on a rotating basis. Only 2 are currently open for appointment only. The rest of them, if they are open, are not taking any appointments except for field work. Most of the districts agree that working from home was very efficient. Some of them are like, well, why don't we just keep doing this because it seems to be working overall, except for the fact that, not having that face-to-face interaction as much, with not only each other, but also the farmers, of course. Field work was limited at first, but those districts that were allowed by their counties to go out and conduct field work, most of the technicians were able to get out there and do stuff pretty quickly, just like everybody else has already mentioned, whether it was AEM work, planning for grant applications, rental equipment, that sort of thing. They were able to pretty much, by the beginning of April, get out there and do work as normal. There was a few districts on Long Island in the southern region that they were not allowed by their county to get out there and do work. Some of them still have not been or have been very limited. Essentially, they were sent home and said, stay there, don't do anything until we tell you can. So hopefully that's starting to lift a bit here in the last week or just starting this week. And hopefully going forward, that will continue in the right direction. Some of the districts have conducted or discussed continuing to hold board meetings by teleconference. They said it's gone very well, other than a few hiccups. They have better turnout than when they do them in person. Their, board members seem to be pretty involved, so they're discussing continuing to do that if everybody is on board going forward. There is one district that will be holding in-person meetings in June. But that's the only one that I've heard of so far. Only 3 of the districts so far have been told to expect cuts in either 2020 or 2021. Most of the districts have not had any conversations with their county officials. I think they're kind of hoping to fly under the radar. Obviously, usually the district budgets are pretty low, small compared to other county agencies. So they're hoping just kind of not to be hit and cross their fingers. Yes, there are a few districts in the region that are fully embedded into the county, which means that pretty much all their payroll, all their finances are, run right through the county like other agencies. So if the counties decide that they really need to make cuts, the district probably is not going to have any control over layoffs and furloughs. We've had some discussions regarding, well, could you use your Part C money to still hire on that person that may be cut, and really depends on the district because some of them don't have complete control over their Part C money, and other ones, staffing and hiring is still, fully run through the county. So really the district board doesn't have any control over those employees that are hired or let go. So what I've been working on, similar to everybody else, Agnon point source applications. I reviewed 5 of the 8 that were submitted for this region. 8's pretty low compared to everybody else, but it's actually above average for Region 5, so I'm pretty happy about that. I conducted 1 closeout that's completed, and there's a few more that are in the works. Westchester Croton Hydrilla Control Project closeout. That was a contract between us and Westchester County with the backing of DEC to remove and study and treat hydrilla in the Croton River in Westchester County. That was I think a 3-year grant altogether. That went very well. They've all but eradicated it. So they're very excited about the results, but they will be continuing Westchester County and not the district, just the county, and DEC will be continuing that contract to continue that process. Worked with Suffolk County Cornell Cooperative Extension and the district on round 1 of the Long Island Nitrogen Implementation Contract. They had to submit a couple interim reports since we've been home, so we've gotten those reviewed and completed so they can receive payment. Also, round 2 is in the works for that program. And I've been working with someone from the Grants Gateway to get the proper forms uploaded into Grants Gateway so that we can start working on round 2 come this late summer, early fall. I've gone to or attended a few board meetings and all the CDA manager meetings. Like everybody else said, those have been terrific for some insight on what's going on around the state. Attended an Upper Hudson River Watershed Coalition meeting just to kind of see what they had going on and where all their grants were standing currently. Jennifer and I have been working with 5 districts in the Hudson Valley regarding the Hudson Valley Carbon Farming Pilot Program. This is mostly cover crops and other agronomic practices. There are a few other, hard structure practices in there as well. But just to try to keep things moving along, Dutchess County holds that contract. But just trying to get things lined up so as things can progress, they have that option too as soon as possible. Seemed like I think it was the first day that we were all home. One of my counties, Rockland, raised the question about the executive order on the transcription of board meetings. So I worked with Brian quite a bit those first few days on trying to get some interpretation from our ag and markets legal folks, other county legal departments, and other folks from around the state, just to try to get some guidance out there on what that transcription requirement really meant. I attended an online small grains training where I was able to earn continuing education units to go towards maintaining my certified crop advisor. Like PJ said, I encourage anybody who can do that to do so. It sounds like they're going to be offering many more online trainings to get those credits. So I will definitely be doing that myself with the unknown future of the fall. I have been in contact with all my districts regarding closing and reopening plans, budgets, et cetera, as everyone else has. And overall, the districts have been operating, really without missing a beat. So things have been good overall, just working from home instead of in the office. State aid has been certainly busy as well. Right in the beginning, this was the topic, I think, at the April board meeting about updating the 2020 performance measures requirements so that districts across the state still had the ability to meet those requirements under the restrictions of COVID. So far, I've gotten some feedback immediately after we released those new requirements, adjusted requirements. There was a few districts that were concerned about their ability to still be able to meet them, but really after a short conversation and a little back and forth, everybody I've talked to so far, was very appreciative for the lesser requirements for this year under these new restrictions, and thinks they'll be able to meet those pretty easily. I have many conversations with the AEAs and other districts across the state regarding performance measures, parts A, B, and C. As the other AEAs have mentioned, a lot of discussions regarding budgets, carryover of the Part C money, how much you should be holding on to hopefully help with salaries and benefits if it's needed. Same with Part B projects. I've been getting some revisions submitted to me, revision requests for Part B. Hard to tell if they are strictly because of COVID. There's definitely been a few that have adjusted some more money towards salaries and benefits and away from the actual implementation monies for supplies and materials. But overall, I think we're getting about the same amount, maybe a few more than we normally would on a normal year of those, change requests. I got a couple in this morning that I haven't opened yet. So we'll see where that goes, but that is always an option for districts to submit those revisions into me if they need to. Finished processing, districts 2019 Part C final reports, the annual reports, and the hourly rates reports. Some of that was done where it needed to be before symposium, and this all really hit so that we could get out the proper memos and get payments made. But there was additional work that needed to be done afterwards just to fill out some of our internal worksheets and spreadsheets, et cetera. All the Part B 2019 final reports were processed. 56 of the 58 districts spent all their funds. There were 2 that needed to return funds to the state. And we have received those that money back. So we are all set with Part B 2019. It's all wrapped up. I assisted with completing the state aid section and compiling some other statistics for the state committee annual report that went out recently. And I've been working on compiling some other regional staffing data and state committee program support data just to have some other figures to kind of crunch and look at that we'll probably go over at a future meeting would be my guess, just to kind of show where things stand compared to previous years, and then other reports that we're trying to generate some new information so that we can have it going forward, just to kind of set and see where things go. But other than that, no, just keeping busy still, definitely. A lot of work still happening, a lot of communication amongst the districts and amongst the state committee staff. Yeah, hopefully we can get back out there soon and do a little bit more field work in some offices. I'll leave it at that if anybody has any questions.
Thanks, Ben. I asked Brian for this update on all 5 of you just to see how all the districts were doing, because I know that each of the voting members, we know our small area, but not the whole state. Appreciate all 5 of you, all the information you gave. Advisory reports. So we're going to do it a little different today due to being online with everybody and trying to figure out how to get on. So I'm going to, we'll start with the voting members. I'll call you out by name to see if you have anything to say, and then I'll turn it over to Brian, and he will call out the names of the advisory members, and then we'll open it up to everybody else. Darren, anything?
No, I think I'm all set.
Thank you. Erica?
Sure. I just wanted to mention quickly that American Farmland Trust last month, May, released a Farms Under Threat report that looked at the state level the most productive, versatile, and resilient farmland, and kind of considering what kind of can be farmed now and in the future with the least environmental impact, or could have the best environmental kind of outcomes. So we definitely looked at it from a lens of loss of farmland or fragmentation of farmland, but the next iteration of that report that's set to be done over the next year and a half, or planned to, so we'll see how the plans go, but that'll be looking at wildlife habitat quality and connectivity with agricultural lands, as well as other ecosystem services with farmland. So both, if there's anyone, we did a webinar and it was mostly kind of for the land trust community as well as some state partners. If anyone's interested in that, there's a website that farmland.org/farms under threat, where you can actually look at the spatial data and different layers of mapping and really zoom down even to a community level that looks at those different indicators, and also changes in land use. So changes to land that's gone into urban, high density, or even lower density residential, which is kind of more the fragmented landscape. So could definitely go on longer about that, but just wanted to mention it's out there. And if anyone has questions or wants any of the other resources, I think, we definitely want to engage the districts if it's a useful resource. And certainly in the next wave of information will probably be even more relevant to the committee.
What was the website again?
It's farmland.org
Okay.
/farms under threat. And even if you go to farmland.org, you can click right on the homepage, and it'll send you to it too.
Great, thank you. Dave?
No, I don't have anything except that we wish we could get some rain.
Yeah, it was very dry here, but we've had some thunderstorms, some pretty bad ones the last couple of days. So it's getting, we haven't
had anything for 3-4 weeks, maybe an inch. That's it.
All right, I have nothing, so I'll turn it over to Brian.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to go through advisory member reports, and I'm going to call on the CDEA first. Chaz, Dustin?
Hey guys, this is Chaz. I know Dustin is also on, or he was on. We have been working on, Dustin's been working on getting symposium going. The dates will be March 9th through the 12th. He is holding a planning meeting on July 1st, and that will be a Zoom call. We had a conservation skills workshop meeting last week, and basically we've come up, or that committee's come up with a modified plan where they'll do a set of online classes, whether it be WebEx, Zoom, or iSpring. We're still kind of figuring that out. 1 week, the week of September 14th, and then do regional field meetings depending on interest the following week, which would have been traditionally the week of Con Skills in Cortland. But because of the situation, we're trying to minimize the number of people in contact. And so currently there's a survey out there. We've got, as of this morning, there was 49 responses to that survey. People interested what classes they would take. There's a list of classes that includes basic soils, EM, basic nutrient management planning and skills, stormwater, New York State DEC new permit update, ag, livestock watering, cropland and overland flow, streams, ponds, HABs, and local roads update, kind of like the RAMP program. So like I said, there's a survey out there. We'll gauge what they do from there. Huge thank you to everybody who participated in that. A lot of those people are on the call today, along with a lot of the state committee staff and Greg. They did a great job at providing a lot of good information and feedback. So, it could have easily just been canceled, but they're really working hard on trying to do something to continue to get our field training in. We are also continuing to offer the 4-hour class online. We're beginning to talk about doing some up to that and cleaning that up and changing some software to make it easier to manage. We have been, during this process, a lot of districts have had to cancel their 4-hour in-person classes. And so we've been working with those districts to try and get them the ability to use the 4-hour online and still be able to get that earned income. So that's been a great idea. And because of that class, the Employees Association has a line budget item for that. And that 4-hour class online has done really well. And so the Employees Association has decided that we're going to do a cost share to each district to go to symposium next year. With some of that funding to give it back to the districts. And then that way it's evenly distributed across the state. Our next Employees Association meeting is going to be July 29th. Again, that's going to be a Zoom call. I'll be getting that out to everybody soon. But we are, continuing to move forward with the sediment erosion certificate program. There's a lot of work going on there. And we have been holding the managers meetings. Thank you for all the compliments on that. It's only as good as the people who call in and participate, because that's really the key in asking good questions and having, it's really just been kind of a chat session where we've kind of thrown around ideas of how and what we're each doing. I know it's pretty challenging. I listened to your regional people, and I hear there are some districts that are open, and I think there's a lot of us kind of just gradually, slowly opening by appointment, and trying to figure out how to make all this work, which is pretty crazy. But that's all I have officially. Dustin, do you have anything you want to add?
I probably need to unmute myself before I talk, don't I?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for all that and the discussion on the water quality symposium. The only thing I would have to add is for the erosion sediment control class. We're working on holding a class in Saratoga County in Ballston Spa the 6th to the 7th of August, which would be our first non-skills workshop or water quality symposium class. So hopefully we can get some good attendance. Jess has agreed to help teach that along with Jim Liebram from Warren County, and we may get some others to help with that as well. But it's exciting to finally get a class that's not just at a district training, so maybe we'll get some more outside private industry folks to show up. That's all I had to add.
Thanks, Dustin. I knew I would forget something.
Well, thank you. I have about a page of notes on that report alone, but thank you so much, both Chaz and Dustin. And thank you for your leadership over these months with the District Employees Association. I know it means a lot to all districts. It certainly means a lot to the partnership. Thank you. Okay. DEC. Any reports from DEC?
Hi, Brian. This is Sarah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sarah. Yep.
Okay. I don't really have much. I just wanted to mention that USGS recently finished and publicized their statewide karst report. I don't know if everybody saw that, but I just wanted to pass that along. It's available for use, and they're going to continue working on the more robust, I guess, mapping of individual karst features on a county by county basis. I'm looking for an update from them now on when that's going to keep, when that work's going to be complete. But in the meantime, we do have the statewide report that kind of shows the karst boundaries. So just wanted to pass that along. I can put the link in the chat box for your use. And besides that, I don't really have anything else.
Thank you, Sarah. I was just going to ask for that link, and we can also send it out to our email list. Thank you. Julie or Asim, anything to add from DEC?
Hey, Brian. Just still continuing to work on some funding and implementation strategy, mostly up in Lake Champlain Basin. And then we're starting to work on our reopening policy. We're getting pretty close. So I think that's pretty much the only update I have.
Thank you,
Julie. Brian. I'm working on a project. We are trying to get additional funding in the Genesee Water Basin, and I'm trying to prepare some reports, basically a piece of our project, so we can get some additional money that can be used to reduce the matching requirement for the farmers. That's pretty much it.
Thank you for that, Asim. Appreciate that update. Okay.
And I will be sending that report by the end of the day today to you.
Thank you very much. Report. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Department of Health.
Hi, this is Paul. One thing, it's interesting to hear that the hydrilla treatment near New Cortland Reservoir was successful. That's nice to hear. The other thing is that the farm program that's funded by New York City, they voluntarily accepted. Actually, they actually recommended that they take a 6% cut in funding on the BMP side of things, knowing that the city's going to have some serious fiscal issues coming up. Let's see. And that's pretty much about it. Obviously, we're all more or less working from home. Some of us are going in from time to time as we need documents or need to use some of the servers. A lot of people don't have access to them. You know, it's interesting. I was interested to hear from the district reports and that they're attending more board meetings now than they ever used to, and in some ways are more up on what districts are doing because of all the Zoom meetings. And I would say that's really kind of been the same with the Department of Health on the water side of things. That we have. I don't know why we don't have time for meetings when we're in the office, but we don't. But now that we're working primarily from home, we have a lot more meetings, and actually, I think people have a much better view of what everybody's doing inside the Bureau. So it's an interesting side effect of the corona epidemic. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Morgan from DOH, do you have anything to add?
Hi, everyone. No, I don't think so. Just a lot of the same thing as Paul said. Some of us are in the office, some of us are out. I thank you all for all the information today. It was very informative and good to see what's been going on. I will also agree with Paul that we've had a lot of meetings. I think I've been a part of more meetings the past several months than I have been since I started with the Bureau of Water Supply. So glad to see everyone's doing well, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Department of State. Stephanie, still on the line?
I am still here. Yeah, not too much. Again, like others have said, thank you for those regional updates. They were very good and interesting and very impressive of all the work that's been done while we're all working from home, and all of us at Department of State are also working from home. And may start coming back once in a while, but for the most part, we're still here. I don't have too much to update. Just we are waiting for an update on the consolidated funding applications and that release. I'm not sure whether or not that will come out this year, but we're waiting to hear, given, you know, the state of the financial situations. Of most interest is of, you know, the watershed planning and implementation funds that we do fund through that program, through our local waterfront revitalization program. So we're waiting with bated breath on that. And just during this time, you know, we're still working on the projects that we currently have, our watershed plans, and reviewing chapter documents, and also, you know, some of the implementation projects that we have funded. So we're trying to move those forward. And then in addition, we're also working on updates to our website, which is very outdated, and we're hoping to have a new page on water resources and watershed planning, and have links to all of the current watershed plans that, you know, we've funded and others have as well, so that we have a resource for that. And other than that, we're just looking forward to the round 26 reviews coming up. So that'll be fun.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. It's been many, many years you've been on the review panel, and thank everyone for their effort in advance on that.
Hey, Stephanie, did you say that there might not be a CFA around this year? We just haven't heard. We're hoping, but we haven't heard any updates. We're hoping that it'll come out, but we haven't heard one way or the other. So, we hadn't either, so I just thought I'd ask. Say that again? We hadn't either, so I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah, we're hoping, but you know, we've really not heard much. So so we don't know yes or no. It's just a waiting game at this point.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yep. Thank you.
USDA NRCS. Blake, Paula?
Thanks, Brian. I just have a few things, and I think Paula has a few things as well. On the hiring front, well, not hiring front, the area conservationist for the Northeast, Bruce Hopkins, decided to retire on us. His last day was June 3rd, with almost 40 years of service with NRCS. That's one heck of a hole to fill for NRCS moving forward, but we hope to get that position advertised soon. Currently, NRCS New York sits around 20 vacancies. The pandemic has, we were making some progress on vacancies, and then the pandemic has, those folks that have been on the fence, either leaving the agency or deciding to retire, pandemic has made some of those decisions for them, so we have lost a few folks during the pandemic for those reasons. EQIP funds, we're in the process of moving forward with obligating EQIP funds, about $12 million worth of EQIP funds, and also here in the next week we will be in a position to ask for additional funds for our July 1st cutoff date for asking for additional funds. So we will hopefully bring some more EQIP funds here in the state. On the office operational status, right now there are currently 23 USDA service centers that are in phase 1 of the operational status. The operations of NRCS in some cases, I would say, does not change in phase 1, but it does allow for, you know, our partners, the SWCC, to start having additional folks in the office. All I ask is that we continue to discuss those kind of things locally. Here at the state level, I've decided that, and even FSA and rural development have decided to kind of stay out of those decisions at the local level, because every office and every situation is a little bit different. So I appreciate the comments from some of the folks today on how districts are operating, where they're co-located. That gives me great joy in understanding that the districts at the local level are part of the conversation moving forward on how we can safely open up these offices and get back to somewhat of a normal business. NRCS is going to move a little slower than the state. I've decided that we have been doing okay with the current operational status of up to one person in the office, and also being able to get to the field when we can, and doing as much telework, maximizing our telework as much as possible. And so we will be slow at coming back. There will be some offices that will decide to come back, but that's a decision at the local level they can make for themselves. So in phase 1 and phase 2, the common areas are still closed. So NRCS nor FSA or RD are having any kind of of any kind. So we ask that SWCD do not hold their board meetings in our offices until we get to a phase 3 level, and that could be a while for New York. But we will get there when we can. We make these decisions every Monday on a conference call as to which, per the matrix that we get, which offices move forward and which offices do not move forward into the gating period or phase 1, ultimately phase 2 and phase 3. So with that, that's all I have. If there's no questions, obviously Paula has a few things to go over as well.
Thank you, Blake. Paula?
Hi, folks. Paula Bagley here. I have some good news, and that is we have
we have a geologist that has accepted the temporary job offer to be stationed in New York and will assist New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. We don't have an onboarding date at this time, but it's been a few years in the making, and I'm very glad that we've gotten this far. The other information I wanted to share with you is that part of figuring out how to work more efficiently and effectively, especially with all the data calls that we've been getting, is that we've developed a tool for collecting comments and recommendations from the field staff that we may not see on a daily basis, or maybe don't know who to contact when they have difficulty with a standard or have recommendations for improvement of a standard. So we've put out a Microsoft Office form linked to the State Conservation, Soil and Water Conservation Committee to basically be a one-click option to provide information to the Field Office Technical Guide Committee, who will review the comments received monthly and adjust standard updates on the typical 5-year cycle. This tool being made available is timely in that nationally they are finishing addressing the public comments on conservation practice standards through the Federal Registry. And mid-July, we should be seeing, I expect between 40 and 60 conservation practice standards to be republished to the National Handbook of Conservation Practice Standards, which will mean they will be updated or have to go through state update to be equivalent to the national standard, or adaptations made to that standard that meet the standard writing criteria requirement, so they can be accepted by the state within a 12-month period of time. As soon as we get an idea of what those standards are that are coming out in July, which we won't know until they get the application approved at the national level, I would let everybody know, myself or Val will let everybody know that that's the list of standards that have been updated, as well as there will be a national announcement or bulletin that goes to our e-directives. So the short end of it is 40 to 60 standards are expected to go through national update and publish within the next 30 days. And there's a form out there that y'all can provide comments on the New York standard or the standard that's coming out to give recommendations and be involved in that update process. That's all I have.
Thank you, Paula. Can you provide a link to where that form is located again, either in the chat box, or you can send me an email when you have a chance? So make sure to get that out to everybody.
Sure, and that's the same one that that I sent to Tim and Greg to help get posted to the SharePoint. So it might be better to go to that SharePoint location. So maybe we get that from Tim.
I will do that. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Paula. Okay. Ag and Markets.
Hi, Brian. This is Tim. I don't really have much to report. Looking forward to getting the grants to score. I was wondering what I was going to do with my free time this summer. I guess now I know.
Yeah, you always knew. You always knew what you were going to be doing with that.
That seems like a lot.
It is a lot.
Nothing
Thank
to
you,
report,
Tim.
though. You bet.
Appreciate it. ESF.
Sure. So two things. First one, in the last few weeks, I've started to work with the New York Power Authority and the Canal Corporation on their Reimagine the Canals initiative. It's something they've been sort of developing for the last several years, but really just in the last 6 months, they kind of got approval from the governor's office to move ahead with some actual funding behind it. A lot of that involves economic development, just generally related to the canal across the state. But there's a specific piece in Western New York involving Orleans County, Monroe County, and Niagara County related to basically expanding irrigation related to the canal, and also trying to come up with a long-term plan for water management. So we're in the early stages of that, but I know ag and markets will get involved, and some of the conservation districts will get involved also. So sort of more to come there. But it was sort of good news they were moving on that despite sort of financial concerns across the rest of the state. The second thing, I've sort of been mostly with students at ESF exploring kind of new technology options for assessing implementation of management practices. So we had a senior group of engineers do a design project in the spring, basically using Landsat satellite imagery and what's called Google Earth Engine. So Google provides a cloud-based way to process remote sensing imagery. So they came up with an algorithm to detect cover cropping. So we're sort of refining that, but I think it's one of these things, the long term, it could provide some relatively easy tools that are relatively inexpensive to get sort of a big picture view of how soil and water management practices are being implemented across a region. So that's something sort of in development, but probably might have something to share at some point soon. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, we certainly want to continue to hear updates on both of those projects that you discussed there. And Vic, who you heard from earlier with his regional report, he and I have also been talking about the canal program, and certainly look forward to getting together with the 3 districts that program relates to. And thank you again for your update on the really interesting project there with technology and assessing BMPs. Appreciate that. Okay. I will just mention, I did not hear that Brian Rahm was on from Cornell University earlier, but I'll just make one more quick request if Brian has joined us. Okay, I also know that Elizabeth Claypool had to duck out a little early, so I think that wraps up our advisory member reports, but I will pause and just ask if I missed anybody. Okay. Next, I would just ask if any of the state committee staff have anything to add that they didn't already have a chance to discuss earlier.
Brian, this is Bethany. I do have one more thing to let the state committee know. So a couple of weeks ago, we received our first application for the Source Water Buffer Program. That came in and is currently being reviewed, and we're working with the districts or the district to get some clarifications in order to move forward with that project. But I wanted to share that with everybody because it's been a long time coming, and hopefully we will start to get more be submitted for that program.
Thank you, Bethany. If you weren't going to mention that, I was going to ask you to. I appreciate that very much. And yes, that was a tremendous, really great surprise to see that come in. And I know that you've been working with a few districts and land trusts across the state, and you know, this one kind of came in without your knowledge that it was coming. So it was great to see that. All right. Thank you, Bethany.
You're
Questions,
welcome.
comments for Bethany? All right. Other state committee staff, do you have anything to add?
Hey, Brian, this is Greg. Attempting not to overlap all the good information that's been stated so far.
Joe Lawrence and I from the CCA board have been working on a kind of a quick instruction on how private sector planners, districts, other partners who are certified crop advisors might be able to take in classes and get credited for certified crop advisor continuing education units. And we have a guidance document associated with that that's currently under review by the Northeast Region CCA board. But once it has their acceptance, we'll send that out to districts and planners who may be consuming trainings in a different way for the current and next several months virtually.
Well, Greg, thank you for that update. I know that similar things were reported throughout the day today, and I'm sure that districts across the state and our partners will be eager to see that guidance and move forward on their credits. That's excellent. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
This is Jennifer. I'll just add that the 2019 annual report has been is out for release and has been emailed. I'm going to put a link to the file in the chat box right now so you can find it easily.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Yep, thanks.
I appreciate that. And again, if I didn't hear you speak up on that one, I was going to call on you in just a moment. So thank you again. Great work done by districts in 2019. Equally great work done by committee staff to make great use of all the data that goes into that report, combing through other district annual reports and information available online. So thank you to the staff for all your contributions to getting that report done. I encourage everybody to take a look at it if you haven't already. Thank you, Jennifer. Hey, other state committee staff? Okay. At this point, we're just going to ask if anybody else who's joined us on the phone today, partners, district professionals, or anybody, that if you have any public comments or anything to add to the meeting, now would be your chance. You can unmute your line and go ahead and address the committee.
Hey, this is Corey Humphrey from Suffolk County Soil and Water. I just wanted to jump in quick and just kind of bounce off of Ben's sentiments for our region. We've been working a lot with him since this COVID started, and I just wanted to recognize all the hard work he's put in with the Suffolk district. So thank you, Ben. We appreciate it down here.
Ben, maybe talking into the mute button or just thank you, Corey. Really appreciate that. I certainly always appreciate hearing from districts about how we've been able to support your efforts and certainly through this time, and appreciate that feedback tremendously. You guys continue to stay safe down there and be healthy, and look forward to a chance to come down and view some great projects down there on the island.
We'd love to have everybody come on down, so whenever you're all feeling comfortable.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Before we move on to the next part of the agenda, I will just take a quick moment to mention a hot off the press announcement, if I can find it now. A lot of you have heard presentations to the committee on the first ever Leopold AIM Award, and we did receive applications. Again, districts never cease to amaze us on their flexibility and ability to adapt during this time, and we did get some really great, strong nominations from districts. And we are hoping to present the award at the Empire Farm Days if that continues to happen. If not, there are other options available to us. But a press release just came out, a joint press release from the San County Foundation and our department announcing finalists for the award. This isn't the actual announcement of the award winner, but finalists include Hemdale Farms and Greenhouses of Seneca Castle in Ontario County, On Our Own Farm in Canajoharie, Montgomery County, and Sangley Farms of Peconic in Suffolk County. So those three farms were selected by the review panel as finalists for the award. There were additional applications also submitted, and all were very strong. Those three farms rose to the top, and the winning farm will be selected from those three. And a great thank you to the review panel. So another new thing this year was that we utilized advisory members and partners to the state committee to actually review the applications. And that was actually led by Judy Luttrell from our department and Lance Irving from the San County Foundation to have that discussion with the reviewers. And it was a really good discussion. And I was just truly inspired by the applications and all that farmers are doing and districts are doing to help them to be great stewards of our environment. So more to come on that, but that press release just came out, so I thought I would mention it here. Okay. Okay, Dale, back to you.
Great. The farm show as of yet is still on, so we got to wait and see if they change that as we get closer, but they're right now still supposedly going to have it. Next meeting date?
Yep.
July 3rd, Monday, 3rd Tuesday, or what do you want to do?
I would suggest the third Tuesday to start. So that would be the 21st. You know, it does get difficult in the summer months to schedule meetings. We would probably likely have a July meeting and then skip August again unless we have a real need to meet. But start off with July 21st for the voting members. Check their calendars.
Works for me.
Works for me.
That might be trouble for me. I'm not 100%. I think I have something going on that day.
Okay.
You said the 21st?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that works for me.
Okay, Darren. Well, why don't we just we'll pencil it in for now, and we'll just stay in contact on that date. We would most likely still continue to do via WebEx, even if we at that point in time have the ability to be in an office and have one office location. We still can do this WebEx format for voting members and other participants. I should also mention that even with the executive order expiring at the end of this month, our department is still very cautious about outside members of the public accessing the building, which also includes other state employees as well. Just that each building and state employees are operating under subtly different plans for those buildings. So most likely we would still hold a meeting this way in July. I've noted a couple of things for the July meeting already from today, and one other topic that we would attempt to get on the agenda would be a presentation from the Cornell University PIs who completed a carbon farming greenhouse gas mitigation opportunity research paper to see if they would be able to come in and present on their findings.
Right.
On the state fair.
I have not, no.
Just Curious.
Yeah. Still holding out that they haven't made a decision yet. That might be a positive for the state fair to move forward. That would be in phase 4. I think that most of the state is on schedule to be able to implement phase 4, but also know that that is a very large gathering that could draw from other states, so that all has to be considered, but no decisions that I've heard yet.
Curious, thank you.
Nope, no problem.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go over the
Yep.
recusal process.
I will. You know, and I want to thank everybody who called in today. This has been also great for us to be able to provide better access to all of you for attending and participating in our committee meetings. For those of you who have been to committee meetings in person before, when we discuss things that are relative to competitive RFPs that districts apply for, you know that we ask you to leave the room and then come back when that discussion's over. Obviously, we have to adapt to this new format here, and it's not as easy to do. So we moved this next agenda topic to the very last topic on the agenda so that we could ask for recusals at this point in time. So that would include any district officials who are on the line right now, with the exception of the Employees Association, who speaks on your behalf in these discussions, and any farmer also who may be joining us to please recuse themselves. And the best way we know how to do that right now is just to hang up the line. We're going to have a brief discussion about the round 16 year 2 Ag non-point round 27 split and a motion by the committee, and then we will adjourn immediately after. So again, I want to thank all of you for participating, but at this point in time, I would ask for you to hang up your lines, recusing yourself from this discussion, and then we'll proceed. Okay, Dale, it looks like people are leaving the call.
Okay.
There's really no way to get full confirmation of it this time. I'll just give it a bit more of a pause. And
Filling the empty time that kills us all, doesn't it?
Exactly.
I'm trying to help you out.
You are, well, thank you, Saz. I appreciate that. I also know that we need to build more time in for call to order and introductions for the next time we meet. But
it's really hard because you can't. It's really hard. Everybody did a great job, though. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at putting their name and district into the chat box.
We have, yes. I
sure
picked that up from one of your meetings. Yeah, to do that.
Yeah, and a lot of times, I don't know about WebEx, but I know that if you, it'll record your chat too. So that way it makes it a little easier. But I think because we had to register to come in, oh, it doesn't work with the phone. So never mind, that doesn't work. Sorry. Again, I'm killing your
Yep.
time for you. So.
No, that's quite all right. It's quite all right. I think we've given it enough time at this point, Greg, for you to go ahead and proceed.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
We'll flash up my screen there. Hopefully you're seeing a fairly simple 2 or 3 paragraph document on your side of things, everyone.
It's coming in, Greg. Thank you.
All right, very good. So thanks, everybody. Last agenda topic here. This is an annual process that we take on to decide, once we have a new state budget and allocations for the total Ag non-point source line in the EPF, of how we and how much we split off of that to fund the technical assistance track within the AIM-based program. And back in September, we did that for the first year of the new 2-year AIM-based program at $4 million. And the total action plan budget for this AIM year 16 for the technical assistance track, so that those funds that fuel all of the personnel technical assistance work, or much of it, by districts in AIM, came to about a little over $7.1 million. And the committee moved that we fund $4 million of that for the first year. So it's a very simple process. For the second year, it's simple math. That leaves $3.1 million and some change. You can see that specific number, which we've never been able to do before because it's just math and not a educated estimation like it normally is, to be split out of the fiscal year 2021 Ag non-point source line from the EPF budget, which starts at, I believe, $18 million, and with some programs that are taken out of that line ahead of this would be taken out of, I think, $16.25 million, leaving at least at a minimum floor somewhere around $13 million for Ag non-point source, around 27. Of course, there's always some rebuilding of that with return funds as well. So appreciate your consideration and a motion decision, if appropriate, to fund the second year of the AIM-based technical assistance track at $3,109,639.72.
Anybody have any questions or comments? I get a motion to approve that we are transferring that $3 million plus into change. We're going to approve that from round 27 Ag non-point source budget.
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
It is approved.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you very, very much. Appreciate that. All right, yep. Dale, that concludes our second ever WebEx video conference meeting. And I know that a lot of people have left us already, but for those of you who stayed on the line, thank you all for your time today. Thank you for your contributions to this meeting. Thank you to the staff for all that you've done to make this happen today as well. And I think, like a lot of the discussions we've had today, we are, kind of going through this new experience here, and there probably will likely be more meetings like this in our future, with a couple of longer and meetings face to face throughout the year, but with a few technical glitches in the beginning, all in all, I think it went really well. So I want to thank everybody for their contributions today.
Yeah, I thought it went very well this time. Thank everybody. Be safe, and we'll be in touch in July. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.